Everyone, welcome to our April 22nd, 2025 BCC meeting at the South Walton Annex. It's 1 p.m. We're starting just a minute or two late, but all the commissioners are in attendance. And Jason, would you mind coming up and giving us, where is Jason? He's not here? Commissioner Gladwell, would you do that?
Father, Lord, we thank you for this day and all your blessings. We thank you for each one who's here today as we conduct our county's business and we act in the best interest of our citizens. We ask that you would guide our decisions and that you would help us, Lord, to do everything as you would have it to be done. And we ask these things in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any elected officials in the audience? Nope. Okay. The meeting is called to order. The first order of this meeting will be considering the additions and deletions. Mr. Sunday.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, good afternoon. We have one deletion request, and that is the request to approve the Tourism Department's fiscal year 25-26 media plan. We're going to meet and have some further discussion on that. We will be bringing that back. Also, Commissioner Anderson, I believe, has requested to move his two items to the front of the agenda to immediately follow the consent agenda if the board would so oblige.
Okay.
Move the motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that approves our additions and deletions. So is there any public comment? If you're not going to be here when your item comes up and you'd like to speak about that, you're welcome to come forward now. Is there anyone that would like to speak on a topic that they will not be here for? Okay, seeing none, thank you. We need to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's passed. So I believe you will take it to Commissioner Anderson's items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Anderson, your first item is item 41, which is the memorial. Do you want to take that up first? Or?
Yes. Chief and Sammy, would you both come forward, please? While they're coming up, they brought this idea to me a couple of months ago, probably, wasn't it? And I think it's a very good idea, and I did tell them that we needed to have board approval. But if you would go ahead and explain what you want to do.
First, Commissioners, thank you for allowing us to address you this afternoon. Commissioner Anderson, appreciate your support on this request. Thank you. I signed off on that. It's been 21 years since we lost those three men on that night back in 2004 when that air ambulance crashed out in the bay. And every year we make a concerted effort to do a memorial of sorts down at Pilcher Park for a couple reasons. One, to make sure that the legacy of those men is not forgotten by those of us in the community here, and also to make sure that those who were not here then know their story. The fire district has a small granite monument at our watercolor station for Robert Heighton, but the other two crew members and the ship as a whole was never really memorialized in any way. We felt like, Pilcher Park wasn't there at the time. That was the site of many of you all may recall, the incident command post, and where we actually did the recovery operation and so forth. And so really here to ask for your support and to do something that would be fitting there at Pilcher Park to recognize these three men and their service to this community. And so that's really the ask.
And Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to do that.
Second.
And by the way, they're handling everything, right, Chief? You're handling the statue, and when we'll be there, I'll be there when I can't speak for all of them, but I'm sure they'll all be there when you do it. So
Do you have a time frame? that you're planning? Not yet?
No, ma'am, not yet. So we have some conceptual design ideas just to try to get an idea of what something like that would cost and what it would look like, and obviously depending on where county staff would see that would best be placed. So we can get more of those details together and make sure that we communicate that with you, with your support.
And this may not require a motion, Mr. Atkinson. That would be just direct staff to work with you. Yeah, we'll just direct staff to work with you, and then y'all bring it back, and then we'll, okay?
Okay.
But thank you very much for all that you do, not just what you're doing now for this memorial, but for everything else that you do and for your participation in the funeral that we had recently. You did an amazing job. So thank you for everything very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Chief, do you think there's any way possible that you could have it by October 20th, which is the date of the,
That would certainly be a good goal to have, to try to pull that off for this year.
is there
Commissioner,
anything we could do?
That's our goal at this point. In speaking with the company that's putting this together, I hate to say time is of the essence, but time is of the essence with the ordering of the slab and the etching and artwork and all that goes with it. So I think if we moved on it pretty soon, we could get it by October. That's our goal anyway.
Is there anything we could do to help?
Say yes.
We're gonna do that, I hope. but-
Do you foresee any cost hurdles, funding?
So we haven't worked out those pieces yet. We know it's about around the $8,000 mark is what we think it's going to cost. And so we're trying to navigate that now. We wanted to get the boards, kind of get the temperature from you all on if you would support it, and then go from there.
If I have anything left one way or the other, if you guys have a shortfall, let me know. I'll
Thank you,
donate.
sir. Thank you.
Well, and that's something we need to see if we can do, is put rec plat fees for that money. You don't think so, Melissa?
I'll use my office discretionary if I can.
Okay, I would say no on the rec plat fees because it's simply not recreation.
Yeah, and I'll, if I can donate some out of my office fees, I'll do that, but I'll also donate personally for this.
Okay, what about the money we have for capital?
Absolutely, that would be
commissioners-
available. That is general revenues.
Would you adapt your motion to say?
Well, we don't have to
We
have
don't
a
have a
motion.
motion, we just, they're gonna bring it back with the
Okay.
cost, and then we'll do it.
No, to put it there.
Yeah.
And would you amend that motion to include up to $8,000 from our capital fund that the commissioners have?
Yes, I'll,
And I'll amend my second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to help fund this for you. So I think that's wonderful. Does anyone have any comments? Anyone in the audience have any comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Commissioners,
you.
thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank-
Again, we
thank you all.
appreciate all you all do.
appreciate
We'll
all
be in
y'all
touch
do.
with the quotes and the renderings as soon as we get them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you, Chairman, thank you. My next one is, I met with the seniors and Mr. Powell to look at a place to put a senior center, and this is the only thing I'm asking is approve the place. And we'll get to the next phase when we start looking at drawings and things like that. And I am going to put in the 500,000 that was approved at the last meeting for the senior center. So, Chance, if you would come up, please, and
Chance Powell, for the record, Walton County Engineering, and Matt Trawick and I and Commissioner Anderson met with the seniors group, I guess that was last week. And the site that we're looking at there is about 2.5 acres immediately west, if you're on the other side of the parking lot, of developable opportunities there. The seniors have an architect within their group that has offered up some services to do some site planning and things. I think they've got a great start. There's an opportunity to phase this, starting on the south end of that developable piece of property and moving to the north with a build-out plan. I think they were looking at a phase one starting at around 6,400 square feet or something that would meet their goals. If there's any questions you guys have for us, we'd be glad to answer those.
So you got a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this site plan.
Second.
have a question. Are there any wetlands that are going to be involved in this?
There are wetlands immediately west of the site. You can see on this image that's shown here, it's a long skinny parcel there, developable area. It's deeper towards the north end, and it gets shallower narrower as you get down to the south end. But there's no, at this time, there's no plans to have any impacts into the wetlands or the wetland buffer on the site.
Chance, was this particular area at one point in time, as far as you know, dedicated, earmarked to have a duplicate of this building?
I've seen some drawings, and I think Matt's even has a copy of those drawings. It wasn't an exact duplicate of it. Obviously, it met this same aesthetic architecturally. And in that original plan, I was somewhat involved in that back in the early 2000s when I was with a private consultant that was doing work for the county. The old Government Education Center development plan, I think it was Carlin Killam that did that work out of Pensacola. It was just identified on there as I guess government square footage space. I don't know that back then that there was anything specifically said this square footage will be used for this, that, or whatever. It was just square footage availability on the site for the entire government education facility.
Okay. The reason I ask is because I've always been told that that was supposed to be kind of a mirror of this building, and that this was going to be like a governmental complex, and if we do this in that location, that would kind of change that. So,
I mean, that's,
I just,
it's up to
I
you
can
guys to-
answer.
okay.
The northern parcel, the northern part of that was to be a judicial center. And they did go so far as to put the parking for that building on this parking lot out here. There was, at one time, there were some signs for the handicap parking. But that plan was abandoned, what's, Mr. Sunday, about 25 or 22, 23 years ago, at least.
It's been a while. I don't quote me on the years, but yes, 20 plus.
The only reason I know about the handicap parking places is because I came down here for a meeting one time and parked my patrol car in what I thought was good parking, and it wasn't. And a reporter took a picture of it. So I have firsthand knowledge, but that was abandoned a long time ago.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other conversation from the board? Anyone in the audience like to speak to this? No? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And I'd like to commend Chance and Matt for working closely with our seniors. They've done a good job, and the seniors have been participating from the word go. So thank you all for coming, and unless you have some other business, you might want to leave.
We'll wait if you want to go ahead and leave. We'll wait for the meeting.
You are more than welcome to stay, though, if you'd like.
Thank you for being here. Okay, now we're at citizens' request at number 18. Would you like to take that away?
Yeah, thank you,
Mr.
Madam
Sunday.
Chair. We have with us, I believe if she's here, Miss Jennifer Steele with the Cultural Arts Alliance. She's the president and CEO, and she's requesting that the board approve and authorize the chair to sign a resolution designated May as Art Month. I actually have the resolution, and Ms. Steele, I'll give you a moment to address the board. If you would like for me to read the resolution into the record, I'll be happy to, or,
Okay.
but go ahead.
I'll just speak for a second, and then I'll
Okay.
let you read the resolution. Hello, Commissioners, thank you so much for this opportunity. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. 36 years ago next month, a group of Walton County artists and community volunteers worked with support from the Tourist Development Council to create the Grayton Beach Fine Arts Festival. Local artists set up booths and sold their original work, and net proceeds from the sale of lemonade supported youth arts education. These small grants served as the catalyst for the establishment of the Cultural Arts Alliance, which in 2008 became the official local arts agency for Walton County. When the festival outgrew Grayton, it evolved into what we now know as Arts Quest, which has been held in several locations over the years throughout South Walton, but has enjoyed a long-term home in Grand Boulevard's Town Center. Due to the success of Arts Quest and other TDC-supported events held in the shoulder season of May, the CAA saw the potential in promoting all of Walton County's arts and culture scene in a collective and collaborative initiative we call Art Month Walton County. Art Month unites artists, organizations, businesses, communities, and audience throughout the month of May. And in addition to Arts Quest, the celebration includes a fundraiser for the Underwater Museum of Art, Lake Fest in Defuniak Springs, the Longleaf Writers Conference in Seaside, digital graffiti at Alice Beach, theater performances for children and adults by the Rep and Emerald Coast Theater Company, and Sinfonia Salutes, celebrating our veterans through music, along with 50 other opportunities throughout the month. I invite you all to attend any or all of these events and experience the arts in action, witnessing the impact they have on the health of our community, both socially and financially. I'm here today to also request your collective support for Art Month by passing the resolution, which will highlight the county's ongoing commitment to fostering the arts, supporting local artists, enriching the community's cultural landscape, and positively impacting our economy. Thank you.
That's wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Jennifer. Do you want to read the resolution?
Yes, I will. For the record, it's Resolution 2025-23. It's a resolution of the Walton County Board of County Commissioners to officially designate the month of May as Art Month, Walton County. Whereas the Cultural Arts Alliance of Walton County, a private 501c3 not-for-profit organization, was founded in 1993, and whereas the CAA was designated in 2008 by the Walton County Board of County Commissioners as the official local arts agency for Walton County, and whereas the CAA created the Art Week initiative in 2016 with the purpose to bring Walton County's neighborhoods, organizations, and businesses together to present quality arts programming and entertainment for the community, and whereas through the success of Art Week, the initiative expanded into the full month of May and became Art Month in 2019, and whereas Art Month features visual, performing, and literary arts programming for residents and visitors of all ages in various venues throughout Walton County, and whereas Art Month provides a full month of programming that serves the local community and drives tourism, including but not limited to the Arts Quest, Fine Arts Festival, digital graffiti, Emerald Coast Theater performances, gallery events, and the Longleaf Writers Conference. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Walton County Board of County Commissioners officially designates the month of May as Art Month in Walton County. Approved this 22nd day of April 2025 and signed by Chairperson Donna Johns.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any conversation from the board? Anyone in the audience like to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye. And
Passes
and thank
5-0.
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you
You
so
work
much.
really hard, and this is the 6th year. Have you been at the head of this for the last 6 years?
Yeah, in my position,
Uh-huh.
I've been with the CAA for 17 years.
Okay, but with this being the 6th year
Oh,
of
yes,
this,
yes.
of May being the month, the Art Month.
Yes.
Yeah, you do a lot of great work. I do attend a lot of these events and stuffs, and and it's fantastic. It
Thank
really
you.
is. So
Thank
thank
you.
you for all you do.
Thanks so much. Thanks to all of you for your support.
Thank you,
Yes.
Commissioners. The next item is also a citizen request. It's Kaylee Peters. She makes her way forward. This is regarding recognition of Walton County for completing a 5-year cycle of improvement for AARP, Network of Age-Friendly States and Communities.
Good afternoon, Chair Johns and Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Peters. I am with AARP Florida in their Tallahassee office. I'm glad to join you here today. On behalf of AARP Florida, I am here to acknowledge Walton County and your leadership to making your community an even better place to live for your residents. Walton County is one of 48 age-friendly communities in Florida and nearly 1,000 in the U.S. The AARP Age-Friendly State and Community Network also includes 12 states, including Florida, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We are also part of a broader global network, including more than 50 countries across the world. The age-friendly community process represents a commitment to improving areas of community life in the built and social environment in which we live, work, play, and age. Today, we are here to celebrate a milestone of accomplishment in your age-friendly journey, the completion of a 5-year cycle of joining the network and progress in your community's age-friendliness. Among your community's many accomplishments, you have expanded access to health and wellness programs tailored for older adults, including chronic disease management and mental health support, improves transportation options to ensure older adults can easily access healthcare facilities, social activities, and essential services, increased opportunities for older adults to participate in community activities and decision-making processes, and implemented safety measures to reduce the risk of falls and other injuries among older adults. These initiatives reflect Walton County's commitment to creating a supportive and inclusive environment for its older residents. On a personal note, my grandparents reside in the lovely community of Santa Rosa Beach, so on their behalf, I am particularly grateful for your commitment to aging well in all aspects of community. On behalf of AARP Florida, it has been our pleasure to work with Ryan Mims and his team at the Department of Health and their extraordinary commitment to the people of Walton County. I am pleased to present this plaque in recognition of your efforts and look forward to hearing and sharing about your continued age-friendly accomplishments ahead. Thank you. I'd like to invite Ryan Mims and his team up.
Thank you very much. I think that's very kind. I love what you said when you said, live, work, play, and age here. That's really nice. I like that. Anyone want to join us? Commissioner Drake?
You on one side and Tony on the other.
He didn't want to stand next to me. I said, well, I want Tony on one side of me and Stan on the other.
And we'll hit you in the knees.
It's a beautiful plaque. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, thank you, Commissioners. The next item is Mr. Chris Kalisa. Chris, come on up. He would like to address the board and has a request regarding a piece of property that we own that is on LaGrange Bayou, adjacent to the 5 acres that we are working with the Department of Interior and the Bureau of Land Management to develop into a waterfront park. So, Chris, go ahead with your request.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Chris Kalisa. I reside on Bay Loop Road. This is my wife, Barbara. I'm going to let her talk for a few seconds, few minutes real quick, and then I'll finish up with all the technical stuff, if you don't mind.
Thank y'all for giving us this opportunity. We have a contract to purchase the Marina and the restaurant located off of 83A Bay Loop Road here in Freeport. Our ultimate goal is to improve and expand this marina and restaurant facility and have safe public recreational facilities and access to the water for our surrounding neighborhoods like Marina Village, LaGrange Bayou, Cross Creek neighborhoods, as well as the surrounding Hammock Bay neighborhoods. You know how many people live in all these areas. At present, there are no similar public access areas to the water that are convenient for walkers or the children on their bicycles wanting access to the water or the bay and LaGrange Bayou for fishing and boating. There was recently installed a crosswalk path from these neighborhoods like Hammock Bay across 83A with direct access from the walking path, sidewalks surrounding the Hammock Bay community. Our dream would be to have a similar facility plus a fishing pier, boardwalk, and playground area with possibly a beach for the children and their parents to come and enjoy the future expansion of the restaurant, similar to the North Beach Social Club as a great example. We are asking permission for your help and the county engineers to consider the continued construction of the road at Marina Village Boulevard to allow access and future public parking that will benefit the community with future water access and the safety of our children and families. We will be revamping and improving the existing boat ramp with much needed public access. We understand there were previous plans for future expansion on this property for a public park and fishing pier already under consideration. We would like to ask permission for this project to continue to move forward with the county planners and engineers. Having this access to the bay waters would greatly improve traffic problems with people traveling to the facilities on the south side of the bay. We also understand there's a previous precedent in Walton County where the Pompano Joe restaurant, in a joint venture with the county, worked together to provide parking and access to beaches of South Walton, and we would like to do that. My husband Chris and I, he owns Deep South Land Clearing, is willing and able to provide his services to the county and contributing to the construction of this project. Our initial request to the county commissioners was to lease this property to enable more parking and access to the water for this community and for the neighborhood. After consultation with the engineers and planning department, and thanks to Mr. Chance, Mr. Cotton, Mr. Sunday, and Miss Melinda Gates, we have come to greatly understand the full impact this project could make in our community and this neighborhood to allow better access to the public for recreational needs to the water, for better boat ramp access and restaurant facilities, and we appreciate your consideration on this.
Okay, so let me make sure that I'm clear on this. You're wanting the county to provide parking for your business?
No, ma'am. What it is, on that picture, that diagram right there, the marina is up top where it says James Massey Trust. The county owns a 3/4 acre tract. It's a 50-foot right-of-way just south of the property that we're trying to obtain. What we would like, because the county is already in progress right now of making a park of the 5 acres just
Right.
south of that part.
Right.
What we would like for now, if possible, and we know everything has to go through delineation with the Army Corps, DEP, we understand that. What we're asking is for continuation of parking just for that one strip, because they're gonna need parking egress coming in and out for a possible boat launch on the track that the county owns already. What I'm offering is I'll supply all the work. The county has some money set aside, possibly for either that park or that tract of land. If they can supply the materials, I'll do the work, or whoever y'all wanna do the work, obviously. Our biggest concern is getting more parking, because we need more parking, because the tract of land that we're trying to obtain is in city limits. And the city's telling us, just for the restaurant part, that we need more parking to have our DO have up, from
Right.
24 to, let's say, 75. What we wanna do is make, the Orr House that's there now is basically run down. The couple that's running the restaurant, phenomenal couple, okay? I wanna go up, clear up top, just like the Wharf 850 in Niceville, if y'all ever been there. I want up top dining, so people can look out on the bay. I want to expand everything and make it a healthy place to go. Right now, you drive up there, it's not a nice place to drive into, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not trying to decline anybody, but I want to make it to where everyone feels safe to come down there. I've had over 100 people contact me once they found out I made this application, saying, please, Chris, we know if you do it, you'll do it right. And I said, I will. I'm putting our life savings into this if we can get this to proceed forward.
But, Madam Chair,
Yes.
but to the chair's point, what it sounds like to me is you want us to take our land to provide your parking.
No,
No.
sir. The roadway right now is zoned for public facilities. And I have a good drawing of what has been prepared over the years, I think with Mr. Cliff.
Right there.
Yeah, showing, this has been in the works for years to have this public park on, you see the roadway coming in and where the parking is. So it would benefit the county and all the people coming from in our neighborhoods to have a place to park, to have freedom. What the proposed park shows is that at one time, a county pier was proposed for fishing, for the kids, for the neighborhood, for the families. And we understand that park is still in the works and can be attained with the property being owned by the BLM. So we're just hoping to get the project up to date and started and, you know, the continuation with that. Having the kids right now, we live a mile from there, and every day we see children on their bicycles riding around with their fishing poles, trying to get to the bay on people's private property, or they do come down to the marina and they fish off the pier. Well, we have boats coming in and out, and there's a fuel cell there. It's not the best ideal place, but if the children had room to ride their bicycles or walk down that road extension to get to the bay safely without going through the parking lot of the existing marina and properties, and then have the access to one day do the proposed fishing pier for them, it would be excellent for this neighborhood. You know, there's, 1,500 families that live in a 2-mile radius. And no way to get to the bay or to LaGrange Bayou for fishing or kayaking.
Well, we, the county,
Yes, sir.
along with, the city started it.
Mhm.
And when they found out the property was actually in the county, it passed to the county.
Right.
But we've been working on this park for a long time.
Yes, sir.
And there is supposed to be a fishing pier adjacent to it, but unless I'm wrong, part of the deal was we're supposed to keep this as rustic as possible.
Mhm.
And our 50-foot right-of-way was supposed to be the parking for that park.
Right.
And so I don't see what you're asking us to do.
We
It's gonna
weren't
benefit-
sure when we were first asking. We
We want to make
continued-
sure, we want to make sure this is going ahead for the county, that the county's going forward with the park
Well, we're working
for
on
that
that.
parking, and I
And the-
understand that.
And the possibility to go ahead and start the road construction, and he's volunteering his time and work if y'all can help share the expense of the materials.
The biggest
and
question is, will we
the
be able to have
permits.
access that parking as well for patrons of a community for the restaurant?
That's a problem.
That is a problem. That would be parking for the park, for the people in the park. and It's
Right,
county
right.
property.
Right, but the part, the
It
two
butts
are,
up to where we're at, and what
are-
I'm asking is, would they be able to have parking access going down that main road and go to the restaurant if need be, or the marina?
they're
I
totally.
don't think it would, I personally don't think it would be right to qualify your ability to increase the seating at your restaurant based on that parking, because that would be parking for the park.
We have another option on that we're already working with the city on. So that parking is not necessity, it's just ideal for especially the children having access. We want to build a playground and other things there. So to have the overflow, the parents can sit in the restaurant if they choose to, the kids can be in the park or fishing, or, so it'd be a joint access. The property totally adjoins to the road. So they can
Madam
walk
Chair.
either
Madam-
way.
Go ahead.
Where are we at in this realm of doing this park? I mean, I've heard about it forever. My predecessor put $100,000 there. do we have any kind of substantial dates, timelines, or anything on this park? I mean, it's still showing U.S. government as the owner.
So the last, yes, we have a conceptual design that is being required by Bureau of Land Management.
Okay.
That conceptual plan is somewhat dated. It was done in 2014. Bureau of Land Management, there was a discrepancy on the acreage. And so BLM requested that a boundary survey be conducted, and they would not accept anyone but their own. Took them 2 years to get the survey done. It was completed this past December. So we now have, or they have the survey, we don't have it yet. So that's complete. What they're waiting on now is an updated conceptual design that we need to work and get some input from you guys on. Once we have completed the updated conceptual design and the engineer has offered to update his file pro bono, we will send that to BLM and then hopefully enter into a long-term lease agreement to develop this park. One of their requirements from the outset was that it be low impact. So that's why when you see the conceptual, the older conceptual plan.
Is that the one you showed me the other day?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It has a couple of pavilions, it has a restroom facility, it has some walking trails that's in the upland, and then in the wetland, it has some elevated boardwalks. And it does have a fishing pier as well. One of the things that I would mention to you is this, regarding this 50-foot strip of property that we own fee simple on the north side of it. Obviously, before we do anything, we would need wetlands delineation and work done on that. I've asked the county engineer to go out and take a look at it from a wetlands perspective. He did that. I can ask him to come up and give you more details, but one thing that we have discovered and taken note of is about 75 feet into this 50-foot strip, beyond where the road turns into the marina, it becomes some pretty severe wetlands that would require a lot to get across. So there's a lot of work to be done just to evaluate the wetlands and to see if it even makes sense to make it an access.
So who or what are we waiting on at this point to go the next step, whatever that step is?
The next step will be to collect input from this board as to the conceptual design, get the engineer to update that. We send that accompanied by the survey to BLM, and then hopefully bring back a lease. I mean, we're close.
I think we need to hold our fire on, because we may need some of that, and the wetlands, I don't think we want to get into. I mean, we talk about wetlands a lot as far as what citizens do with wetlands. It's sort of hypocritical for us to go out there and start filling them in. So I think we just need to hold on this till we get further from BLM.
Mr. Powell, could you come up and just address the wetlands?
Yes, I met with, I'm sorry, what was your name? I know that, your last name is Kalesa. Met with them out there this morning when I went out to take a look at it, and I have a little bit of experience on the site back prior to my career with the county. That entire 50-foot wide right-of-way there, as Stan was saying, about 75 feet from the western boundary of it in, from the end of where the existing road makes a 90-degree bend back to the north, it becomes very, very wet, and it's apparent on both the information you guys have and information that I remember seeing. Really, until we have a good understanding of what kind of requirements the regulatory agencies who have jurisdiction over that are going to have, it's going to be difficult for us to give any kind of commitment or direction on what can and can't be done there. And that would be a lengthy process. I'm fairly certain with Army Corps involved in that and trying to have any kind of activity on that wetland area.
Given the length this project's been pending and what we know will be ongoing hurdles based on what Mr. Powell just represented with the Bureau of Land Management, the Army Corps of Engineers, and other regulatory agencies at other levels of government, even if the board were inclined to take this up or explore this in the future, and I understand it doesn't appear you are, I'll say right now it's premature to do so. The introduction of any ancillary use or collateral uses to what we're proposing at this point, until we determine what we're able to do with the Bureau of Land Management and with these other entities, could well just foul up everything we're working on. So I think the request at this point, at a minimum, is premature. Ultimately, if it is truly for a private use of public lands, we can't even evaluate that until we know what the terms of the overall parcel swap with BLM or anything like that could entail. So I just think we're premature today.
I agree with that. I think it's premature for us to do anything right now. We've got to wait and see what we're going to be able to do with the property. And I'm a little hesitant in combining private property with the county property. I know that you mentioned Pompano Joe's. I think that was a different scenario because that parking lot was destroyed by a couple of hurricanes several times before they finally built what they did, and they came to an agreement with Pompano Joe's basically so that the public would be able to use the beach there. So it's a little bit different scenario. But I think that it would be, I think we would just be opening up a can of worms if we were saying, you know, that we're going to help somebody with parking so that they could, whether it's, you know, to be able to have more people at your restaurant or not, that if we start doing that, we'll have everybody wanting that from the county, and we just simply, in my opinion, I just don't think that we can do that.
Yes, ma'am. I do understand that. That's why we sort of changed that initial request. That's what I was trying to explain. At this point, we're just asking the county to continue their research that Mr. Chance is referring to, and to continue, hopefully, because we're in the neighborhood, to hopefully 1 year complete this project to benefit everybody.
I agree with you 100%.
you.
Unfortunately, it sounds like it
I
takes a long time.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
It takes a long time, but hopefully we will get there. Maybe we could readdress it once we know more and what we have and what we don't have, and what's usable and what's not, and that sort of thing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Powell.
The government moves in mysterious ways.
Yes, it
And
does.
slowly.
Yes,
And
it does.
slowly.
You got one more on citizens'
Yes.
request?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Next item is quarterly update, quarterly report from Mr. Uriah Matthews from the Economic Development Alliance. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Good afternoon, County
Hello.
Commissioners. Uriah Matthews for the record. URIAH Matthews with 2 T's. I'm here to present our quarterly report. A couple big announcements. We had our annual meeting in March where we selected our new officers for the upcoming year. Commissioner Glidewell has moved into our chair position. I'm sorry, I've got digital copies in your email, staff. Commissioner Glidewell has now our chairperson, as elected as our vice chair previously. And I'm sorry, just to clarify, I was just trying to save some money by not printing all these big packets. They're pretty thick, so I sent them to you guys in email. With that said, our vice chair, which will become our chair next year, is Mr. Todd Jackson, CEO of HCA Twin Cities, who, per our last EDA meeting, has announced that they'll be starting their 12-bed hospital or emergency room complex in Definiak Springs in May. So we should see some breaking ground there. Our treasurer is going to remain Ms. Stacy McGilvray, and then we've had a secretary elected, Mr. A.J. Brown of Wharton Smith. Since the last time I visited with you, we've also had 3 new private sector members invest, one being Charter Communications, Okaloosa Gas District, and White Construction for a total of $11,000 in new annual investment. And we have also hired our second full-time staff member, other than myself, or our third, or round out to be 3 total full-time staff members. Mr. Jordan Johnson comes to us from actually being employed here in the county in the service industry, and has got a master's in human resources, believe it or not, and is looking to relocate to Freeport from Okaloosa County. With that said, we worked over the last quarter on 11 projects to increase new business here in Walton County, and then 4 projects to expand existing businesses. One item I did add here, which is the EDA jobs reporting. We do regular reporting due to some open grants right now at the Woodlawn Industrial Park. And those numbers, we're going to start reporting those to you, as what past successes of the EDA have resulted in. There's been 61 new jobs at Woodlawn, 29 jobs retained. And then we're going to be doing, now that we have staff, we're going to be going back and visiting other industrial parks as well, and sort of putting together a library of successes and monitoring that job creation as well, because that's all of your hard work and effort as a community involved in this work. I've attached a few attachments just for your review at a later time. So you'll see those in the back of your portfolio. Positioning the county for future growth, one thing we have done is we have officially gotten the city of Definiak Springs recognized as a Florida Trail Association Gateway City. They had presented last month on becoming that official status. When you're in Definiak Springs, around Lake Definiak, you'll now see a large kiosk that highlights the Florida Trail, comes kind of through Highway 20, up 331, then south of Definiak, west. We had several investor recruitment meetings as you noted, 3 have converted into paying members. We had our second strategic planning meeting, and 2 of the attachments you have are part of that. They're pretty important pieces for our Economic Development Alliance, one of them being a 4th focus area, which is community development as part of our strategic plan, and the second one being a framework that we're calling a marketing agreement framework. And I'll be working with staff to see what relativity it has to Walton County. The purpose of the marketing agreement is to sort of start applying ROI-based decision-making to industrial developments. It is not a set-in-stone business plan, but it is a marketing agreement that goes over high-level ideas that says if we are ever to do an industrial park again, or if you have properties that you might wish to serve economic development, then let's put together a marketing agreement, outline what types of jobs and goals you have as a governmental body, and how we might market that to the economy, right, to potential suitors. It goes over ideas like the Qualified Target Industry Tax Credit. That is a state program that we can use as a foundation to reference for incentive. It goes through site readiness, et cetera. The more ready a site is, the more likely you are to have success in economic development. And then let's see, I had an outbound conversation with a rail facility along 90. If you're familiar with the old Purdue plant, there's a world-class rail facility up there. It has got 9 different, what they call ladders to this rail facility. And we went out, inspected it, actually not inspected from a technical perspective, but inspected it as far as the opportunity for economic development with the representatives from the ownership of that organization. And I brought out city manager of Definiak Springs, Kobe Townsend. He went out there and we looked at it as well. They have also offered the opportunity to potential market 15 acres that they have in private, their own ownership there, that is abutting that rail. So there's some pretty neat opportunities. In a recent response to a economic development project, I included their facility because through our conversations, they said, anytime you have somebody that needs to use our rail, make sure they know, because we can work on relationships and business arrangements because we have capacity for other people to use our rail, and they would like to make some more money as well. We went to Rural County Days, where I saw some of you. Rural County Days is in Tallahassee. It's part of our rural designation as a community. I think it was really the first time the EDA has really presented in a manner that was substantial. We were able to bring out Rural County Days. If you can imagine, the idea is to trumpet the rural aspects of your community. In this case, what we did is we set up a farmer's market, and we highlighted the great aspects of agriculture in our community, which is also part of our strategic plan. And so a local farmer came and set up a farmer's market, and we sort of evangelized Walton County, especially those rural characteristics in our agricultural community. I have also attached as an item in the back a draft budget. I'm pleased to announce that per the regular practices of your financial department, your finance team, they do an early in the year sort of foreshadowing of any organizations that are going to be requesting money. So I've gone ahead and we, as an organization, have agreed upon a draft budget. Obviously, it's contingent upon a much bigger process. But that draft budget is going to reduce our per capita investment from Walton County citizens from $672, which is our current year per capita, and it'll reduce it to $584, which I actually expect to reduce even further because typically in July 1st, the census updates population numbers. And with that said, that reduction is due to continued success in private investment and our growing in population and effective management of our funds and our processes. Go back to that document, sorry. A few things to note. We have also, this is kind of setting up the organization for success beyond staff. We have onboarded to an HR company, Simple HR. They're managing our HR. They're providing us benefits, et cetera, so that anytime a change in staff happens, we have an actual package to present to potential staff members or applicants. We closed out our US EDA grant. We are now in the reporting cycle of that grant, which will go on for 10 years. It's important to note that grant is for job creation numbers. It was agreed upon years before my time. And we've talked about this before as far as the amount of jobs that Woodlawn is sort of under contract for, if you'll reflect back on our talks about the Triumph grant. Originally, there had been a proposal, and it's actually the applicant that kicked off the idea that we should even do Woodlawn. There was supposed to be a grand manufacturing complex, and it fell apart, within a few months of the creation of that project. It alone was supposed to supply all of the job requirements. The reason I state that is because the continued success of that region, any businesses that use the infrastructure, the roads, water, or sewer, will qualify. That's important to note in regards to other projects that may come along that uses that road, water, and sewer. They will also qualify because they're working off of the funding provided by the US EDA. Believe it or not, we had an activation for Emergency Support Function 18, if you recall our snow days. So I was calling around to all our grocery stores and businesses to find out who was open and who could serve the public and reporting back to our emergency management team. As I mentioned, we adopted the community development and the marketing frameworks. We attended a few events, and then I'd be happy to discuss anything further.
That did, Madam Chair, that did, are you, the marketing agreement was presented to Paxton to favorable?
Yes, sir. Yep. Just to highlight that, so I have presented it to the city of Paxton. We had some discussions at Paxton about what can we do about economic development in and around the city. Turns out they have approximately 25 acres of property that is an old grass sort of farm-based airfield that is no longer in use. And so we, after talking about that with several council members, we're now going to work to fine-tune this marketing agreement. Keep in mind it's labeled draft because the adoption is the idea that it's a framework. Each governmental body will say, hey, we like this idea, we don't like this idea, pick and choose, and we'll make that agreement fitting for each organization so that everybody has an idea of what we're trying to do from a governmental perspective. And the city of Paxton has adopted the idea of moving forward with that, and we hope to have something back to them in a month or two.
And also, you didn't mention the AI-based
My apologies.
tool that you have developed.
Yes,
Or the
so,
EDA?
so the EDA has been working over the last 8 to 10 months or so on a concept to answer questions ahead of time, almost like a frequently asked questions for any developer, right? Anytime economic development activity wants to happen in our community, they call. I dealt with 2 of them this week. I need to talk to somebody about this specific issue or this specific item in your planning departments and make sure I can get these things done. So the EDA and the board had essentially come up with the idea of putting out a development guide. And that development guide would help set a basic understanding of everything that needed to happen within the communities. There would be a different guide for each organization that outlines your planning departments or your processes and how that process works. Well, AI has come along as we've been working on this, and I have spent a ton of time using AI, and I ultimately programmed an artificial intelligence tool that is costs no money, and it is available through ChatGPT. It's currently under review by the EDA board, and it answers all basic questions. You can actually have a conversation with the application about, just bought land in Walton County, it's zoned this, and I'd like to do this. It will tell you everything you need to know, but also it's programmed to be cautious, to be definitive. So it says, you know, per, and it cites the sections of the comp plan and the LDC, and it then says, but to confirm, go back to the planning department for confirmation, or the building department for permitting, et cetera. And so we're currently testing that. I could even test it today if you wanted me to.
I had actually seen something like that at one of my conferences. Amazon, I think, had put it on, and what they did was they downloaded our LDC and our comp plan, and that was exactly what it did. Is you could ask it, basically, I'm going to build a shed in my backyard. What do I
Yes,
need a
ma'am.
permit? And so it would walk you through all of that, which is really very cool. And I think I talked to Matt Carpenter about that recently. They're actually looking to do something more internal at the moment, but then want to do something like that. You know, the sooner the better, actually, because it is very beneficial. But I'm going to ask you the same question I ask you all the
Sure.
time, and you know it's coming.
Sure, yeah, I can handle it.
Do you have any business, and I know you can't tell me who, do you have a business that's coming into the county that's really looking hard that would bring a lot of jobs? And when I say a lot, I mean like 50 and better.
So there's not a lot of opportunities for that, but I am working with several businesses now that are smaller than that. One of them, I've been in talks for quite a time, and they're still the same company that is going to be engaged with us, and they're upwards of about 200 jobs, but that was the same answer previously. I have started outbound conversations with several organizations. One is a medical and aerospace company. Actually, we found reference to some potential opportunity in previous years ago conversations. The gentleman actually has a house here, and believe it or not, I had talked to him previously about a totally separate opportunity, and when I found his information, I said, I think I know that name, and I called him and I said, why were you trying to get me to help you start this fast food restaurant when you've got this great company? Because that's what we'd really love to have. And so we're starting those conversations as well. That would be considerable more, but those are you know, entry level conversations that we're just starting.
Okay, thank you.
You're right, we had a talk, I don't know, last week or something. How much further did you get with, because I think it's a good idea, that we look at the county as a whole and what property we have, and then we kind of put it on a map and we show what's, you know, what the zoning is, and then we come back to the county and say, hey, how about, because I first got with you and said, hey, why is Mossy Head the only industrial park that we're focusing on all the time? Is there something or somewhere, some land that we can focus on in a different area? And I think that's what struck the conversation. Have you went any further with a mapping type idea on that, or not?
So I have not gotten it mapped, but I do have a complete Excel file, which may or may not be correct after conversations with Mr. Atkinson. It's regarding essentially an Excel output of all 95,000 or so parcels in the county. And you have the ability to filter by name. You have the ability to filter by current use and zoning. And when you do that to try to find out which parcels are owned by the county, please interrupt me if I'm speaking inappropriately about this, but one of the items that is not mentioned in that what looks like intelligent data is, well, those those parcels may be limited in what they can be used for, or they may not actually even be our parcels anymore due to other agreements that we don't necessarily know or have. And I watched your earlier meeting as we were driving down here. You know, we all sit here in our position with the idea that we're just trying to improve everything at this time. And I think that speaks to, the sort of asterisk on that speaks to that. You know, there's things that were, decisions that were made 20 and 30 years ago that may not have had the record keeping or whatever. To say that list that I have is the most accurate, but I think we could probably get started with it. I'd be happy to call over to GIS and see if they can map that for us.
Well, I was just looking, because I was just looking in the Freeport area, obviously, and, you know, I was coming across some big parcels, and one of them, I think I asked somebody, why does Sandestin have 600, 700, 800 acres up in this area? So I'm going, okay, well, what's that zoned? So it would help me by viewing that with GIS going, oh, okay, so I don't have to look at this one, I don't have to look at that one.
Sure.
I could bring to the board, hey, there's a 20-acre spot that would be good for a potential transfer station / industrial park in this area or whatever. Right now, it's hunt and peck, and I don't like to hunt and peck. So I'd be willing to help you or do whatever I can to get this going.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And to add one item of color, you know, you're relatively new to our board, so one thing to just sort of, the EDA board, I mean,
Right.
particularly. One thing to add of color is, one of the long discussions we've been having at the EDA is, you know, where is the proper place for industrial development? And what I would say broadly, we've kind of, at an EDA level, generally agreed that the 90-10 corridor is really the best place for economic development, because you've got rail, 90 and 10 all located right there. Now, the other idea, though, is again, that marketing agreement helps us understand exactly what would you like to do at a specific piece of property. And I think in the concept of Freeport or in your district, if there's something that you may want to do, it may be targeted more towards white-collar sort of industrial development. Do we want to attract a corporate headquarters? Do we want to attract a technology firm? Things of that nature that doesn't necessarily need access to rail, and may be more appropriate for a community that is also rapidly accelerating in property values as well. Does that kind of speak to that?
Thank you.
I think
No.
if we figure that out, I think.
No, I did.
Yeah,
I mean,
it'd
we've
be
had
great.
several conversations, so I appreciate every one of them. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Drake, anything? No?
There's one clarification I just want to say as well. I think the motion today, we formalize our financials a month behind. So for example, our next board meeting is going to be May 1st. So we're not closing out April. We'd actually be closing out the financials for March. And in accordance with requirements that you have, I just wanted to annotate that. So if you were to ask Melissa, are the financials submitted, that would not be the case. But I would ask for the motion just to be reflective of the fact that if we meet the requirements, that the funding would be approved.
Melissa, do they meet the requirements?
Upon submission.
That's up to the board. I reviewed the financial statements, but it is one of the requirements in the agreement with the EDA that the quarterly report provided to the Board of County Commissioners be approved prior to him receiving the next quarter's payment.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Anyone like to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Uriah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Next, we have a change order. That's change order number 1. We're requesting to approve and authorize the chair to sign to task order ENG 2404. That's with Poly Engineering. It's for additional professional engineering services at Multi-Head Wastewater Treatment Facility, permit renewal. The DEP regulatory requirements have increased somewhat, and so this is a change order to address those additional duties and responsibilities.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Is this in conjunction with something we recently passed for the Mossy Headwater?
We,
Anna, do you know?
where's Anna?
Anna Hudson, HUDSON. The recent, if you're talking about the portable sampler,
Yes.
that was with a compliance visit that DEP had come out, and they do a biannual compliance visit. That was for that, to satisfy them. This is just for a permit renewal.
Okay, all right, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask Mr. Powell to come up and give the board a brief update on the completion of the beach survey.
Yes, thank you, Chance Powell. The beach survey is complete. However, the file is extremely large due to some very, very large, I guess, very high definition photographic imagery that's on those. There's 69 sheets that represent the 26 miles of Walton County beachfront, starting with what's going to be known as sheet 23 of that plan set on the far west end of the beach, all the way to plan sheet number 92 on the far east end at Inlet Beach. I've been working with GIS and IT and Jeremy and Jed and Jason Cook. What we're going to do is GIS is putting together a map that's going to be on the engineering homepage website. That is where anybody can go on and look at a map of South Walton. They can find their condo, they can find their house, they can find their beach access, dune walkover. They click on that, and it's going to pull up a hyperlink that'll take them to that one sheet that represents that location, and they can download it. It's probably going to be around 70 meg download. It's going to be a PDF, so it might take a good bit to download that, depending on what kind of internet connection you have. But we hope to have that available in maybe the next 2 weeks.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Is there any way that we could get the GIS to kind of break down some maps for us so that we could have something in our office that, or at least on the south end, that shows?
Yeah, if somebody comes into your office, I could drop, I'm not sure if they have a computer in that office that's capable of bringing those up. I'd ask Jeremy to maybe look into that, but I think we can get external hard drive over to you with that file on it, and y'all could pull them up, and I could have a little cheat
We also
sheet
have
map.
large printed
great.
sheets, if anybody wants to come up to the county attorney's office. It takes up a good size of our conference table, but I ask them for physicals, and I know people aren't happy about those physicals, and it's odd, I'd try to do everything by digital, but sometimes it's easier to lay those out. So if any of you want to come up there, feel free to let us know. We'll make ourselves available, let you look through them there as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it. I know that was a lot of work. I'm glad that's finally done. And hopefully people will be able to eventually be able to access it fairly easily.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
y'all.
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next up is waste management update. Billy, Mr. McKee.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. At the last meeting, you asked Waste Management to come back with some options to address the difference in the level of service between North Walton and South Walton. There were basically 2.5 options. One was to expand the collection of twice a week to the north end, North Walton. The second would be to provide a second garbage cart to the folks in the north end to offset that difference between the two collections. And the third would be just a variation of the second, which would be offer the second cart to residences in the north end, but instead of just doing it, just taking them out and dropping them everywhere, just upon request, and putting it in maybe a 3-month window of time, 3 to 4 or 5 months, whatever. That way you're just not perpetually folks asking for carts, because it will get expensive if you start getting into multiple thousands of carts. So Waste Management is here to address some of the details. Maybe, I don't know how much information I have on the cost for each option, but they are here to answer some of those questions in a little bit more detail.
Okay.
Mr. McKee, could this, if we passed, say, option 3, what would be the rollout time?
That would be a question for Waste Management.
Well, come on down.
Thank you, Billy.
Commissioners, Doug Rayner, R-A-I-N-E-R, Waste Management. We've had the last couple of weeks to talk with Billy, staff, and a couple of you as well. We would recommend the option 3, if that's what you would like to do, to condense that to about a 3-month time frame. That allows us to really kind of roll that out efficiently. Again, it would be more of a à la carte, if you will, menu where someone would ask us, we would coordinate that back through staff so that we have a record of who has a second cart in the north end, and we could roll that out in about a 3-month time frame. Yeah.
So, that would basically give everyone in district, and 2, 3, and part of 1. That's
All of
option.
1 except for Bunker and Steelfield area, is in, actually in area A at this point.
Okay.
We changed it over, so 2 and 3, Paxton and, the city of Freeport would be in, actually, city of Freeport's gonna be in your area A, but Paxton and, 2 and 3, with the exception of the Funiac, they have their own franchise agreement, so.
But Bunker and Steelfield,
They're gonna be in that, in the once a week, and they would
So they would
qualify
be
for
in
the
this.
second cart, yes, sir.
and, if we made a motion today to proceed, y'all could have that rolled out.
Well, we're gonna need, because I don't think we have cost or amended contract documents, no matter
Okay.
what you do, we're gonna have to bring those back, so, why don't you allow us to have it at your next meeting, especially considering it's a deal with the North Walton issue, more than it is the South Walton issue, why don't you let us have some documents for your approval at your next meeting?
So could we give them direction to bring back,
The cost.
those documents and cost?
Yep.
That's the path
option
we're on.
3.
This was already an update, no direction needed.
Option 3.
And we've discussed the cost with staff already for that option, so we're prepared. We'd be prepared to be at the next meeting with that.
We can have that
That'd be
together.
great.
Well, I'm sure happy that y'all are agreeing to this because I don't know if Commissioner Drake's office is getting them, but we were getting them bad.
Every office is getting it bad.
But-
I
but
know my
since this
aide
came
has,
out,
my aide has been complaining about waste management calls. And you haven't even started yet, you know? The thing is, people are afraid of change. Listen, I'm dealing with this with my son, so I implore people to give it a chance. There's probably gonna be some things we're gonna get back in negotiation with you. You know, it happens when you have that much change. So, you know, you've always done a good job for us. I'm not worried about you doing a good job, but there's things that are freaking the public out, to be honest with you. And it's things I'm gonna say, I kinda expected it to be this way. Because this is a major change from what people are used to. I think it's gonna be a great change, but there are gonna be some tweaks we have to make. And I think, Doug, you know that. Y'all been doing this a long time. You go into areas you've never done it, or you change the way you're doing it. People are not happy to start with. And there are some tweaks we might have to make. But just for the general public, let's give them a chance. Let's see where the tweaks need to be made, if any, and let's work with y'all and make them when we do. But I think the first thing we have to do is give y'all a chance to show that it works. And then if it is, as we go along, if you guys see tweaks or we see tweaks, we'll work on them together. But I think it's gonna be a good thing for Walton County.
Do you, Doug, do you think you're ready for this?
Well, I do. You know, and Caleb's here. He oversees our operations. You all know him, and they've spent, you know, a lot of time getting prepared for this. Driver training, you know, trucks are new, but we do this everywhere in the panhandle of Florida except here in Walton County. So we're prepared. Again, like Commissioner Anderson said, it's a complete mindset change and a habit change. So there will be some differences. There will be hiccups. We're aware of that. And we have some ground level education components that we have in place for residents and things like that. So yeah, we're prepared as we can be, and we really look forward to it. And we appreciate you guys actually moving forward with this type of service. I think that your residents will appreciate it too before too long.
I think so too. I think the growing pains may happen a little bit initially, but in the end, I think it'll be a really good thing. So thank you for all the hard work. I know it's a lot of work and it's been, time sensitive and everything, so good luck.
Yeah, and we'll have everything you need prepared for the next meeting to formally vote on that and change.
Perfect.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. McKee.
You're
Madam
welcome.
Chair.
One more thing, whenever we hit the actual contract date and they start the new collection procedure, y'all gonna get a lot of phone calls, we're gonna get a lot. Because
Right.
we're still trying to work some bugs out of who didn't get a cart. It's a little bit chaotic, and that's 40 years worth of a process that there was no process for. So we're trying to do all of that in a very short period of time, but we're gonna make it work, so just hang in.
And when you say that, I know you mean it, because I know you personally delivered 2 trash cans to 2 people that didn't get them on one street, so thank you very much for that.
We're trying our best to make that happen. It's a team effort, and so anyway, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Commissioner Drake.
Excuse me, Commissioner Drake, I think had a question.
Oh, well, I don't know who can answer this, but I'm looking for a written version of the options. Somebody mentioned version 3.
We'll get
They're
it
gonna bring
to
it
all of you, we'll bring it around, make sure everybody sees it before it's presented to vote.
Okay, well, where did number 3 come from? Because I'm looking on the
And
website.
to be, all right, okay, so to be clear, we may not have the
What is
first.
1, what is 2, what is 3? Is there a 4?
One was a second day of service in Area B, so essentially twice a week garbage service. Number 2 was the formally requested, everyone in Area B gets a second cart. We just deliver, 12,000 carts again to the north, and everybody gets a second cart. Option 3, which was not really brought up at the first meeting or the last meeting, which we discussed and thought we would offer this, would be if someone from Area B has a time frame, 3 months or so, to call in and get a second cart for free, for free to them, we would deliver that and work back through the county for payment for those. Those were the 3 options, formal. And just to be clear, we are working through the cost analysis of a second day of service, which is quite complicated. That cost might not be available to you at the second meeting or your first meeting in May. It's possible, but I can't confirm that. We do have a cost for the other 2 options now.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Looking forward to it. Okay, we're planning.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next up is floodplain management update. Mr. Carpenter. And Ms. Goodhart.
Goodbye, EAD, or EDA, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department, CARPENTER. First thing I want to say is this is not an ask. This is a share. About 15 years ago, the county, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a flood damage prevention ordinance, which is incorporated into our land development code, which requires us to evaluate the potential for flooding and that risk in all development and building permit applications. We participate in the Community Rating Service, which is an opportunity to get a discount based on our performance and how we manage our floodplain. And that discount accrues to anyone in our county that purchases flood insurance. I would like to introduce Ms. Tracy Goodhart. She's our certified floodplain manager. She manages this program and has a brief presentation, and we promise it won't take very long.
Thank you very much.
Yes, very brief. Again, this really is just to give you an update on the status.
Your name.
Oh, apologize. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and fellow commissioners. My name is Tracy Goodhart. I am the County Floodplain Manager. As I stated, this is not an ask. It's just simply to give you all an update on your current floodplain management program. I think what's really important to note is with floodplain management, you have 3 really important aspects: research, regulations, and long-range planning. The research is taking into account the modeling, determining whether or not we're riverine or coastal. That information then informs the regulations, which is essentially our Florida Building Code, our Land Development Code, and the Comprehensive Plan. It's through those regulations that we're able to employ higher design standards that help keep this community resilient in the face of natural disasters or flooding incidences. The community rating system is the framework of this program that provides watershed master planning from a holistic viewpoint. Next slide, please. So currently, go to the second one real quick. Sorry. So the CRS program, simply, it increases resiliency and incentivizes programs through insurance reduction. Currently, Walton County is a Class 6, which provides the citizens with a 20% reduction on new renewing NFIP policies. That's National Flood Insurance policies. Now, if those citizens are located in a CBRA, which is a Coastal Resource Barrier Act, those areas are not eligible for NFIP policy. So that is something that needs to be stated. And of course, if there's questions for the public, I'm certainly available to answer those for them. And lastly, with the CRS program, there's 19 credible activities within this program. They're in 4 categories, and the 4 categories are divided into public information, mapping and regulation, flood damage and reduction, and warning and response. Next slide, please. So currently, these are the goals and objectives, my professional goals and objectives for this county. The goal is a Class 4 through the Watershed Planning Initiative that myself and Melinda Gates worked on with our assistance with our engineering firm Barge. That is the segue for the Class 4. Essentially, that Class 4 will provide the citizens with a 30% reduction in their NFIP policies. Another goal and objective of the program is mitigation. So through the CRS program, we're able to plan for our capital improvement projects. We're also able to plan for public infrastructure. It is designed to help the community gain resiliency and be more resilient. And lastly, again, the resiliency. When we start talking about increased preparedness, post-disaster response, that is critical. We're a coastal community, so the quicker we can get back in our homes and back to work is really the name of the game, right? Next slide. So this kind of gives you a little background on our current county flood insurance coverage, okay? So just to give you all a little background, national flood insurance, we are top 10% in NFIP policies, okay? So that means nationwide. So typically, communities are in a 5-year cycle or audit, for lack of better description. This county is in a 3-year. So every 3 years, we enter an audit due to our top 10% designation. Current policies in force, as of 2025, we have 17,140 NFIP policies in force in this county currently. And those policies each are afforded a 20% discount. So the annual premiums, total annual premium payment for citizens is around $11 million. When you take that account and you take that 20% that we're taking off of there, that's $2 million that the citizens of this county are seeing as a direct, tangible benefit to their dining room tables and to their bank accounts. Next slide, please. So this is kind of the feel-good part of it. Back in October, you all graciously allowed the county to onboard the Forerunner. The Forerunner platform is the people's tool. Not only does it provide QA/QC for staff for regulating and making sure that development is compliant, but it also provides a lot of public information for the public. So I encourage all of you, if you have a phone, scan the QR, browse it, put in your address. It's an opportunity for you to explore this map and really utilize it to your benefit. But the property level flood risk that's provided is flood zones and base flood elevations determinations. We have finished construction ECs that are forward facing on this platform, which is a huge bonus to the program, in addition to land use and emergency management information. So the public can get on this site and they can see what evacuation zone they're in, and they can see what storm surge they may be susceptible to. So it is of value to be able to better understand your level of property risk. From a post-disaster response, it's a great internal tool. So if and when, hopefully never, we ever are initiated after an emergency, this tool can be used out in the field by our EOC and our members to take live information. And this form, the way it's set up through Forerunner, is completely set up to where whatever we put in this program translates perfectly to FDEM, Florida Department of Emergency Management. So in the event of emergency, we're able to seamlessly transfer this information to get people back in their homes quickly. Next slide, please. So here's just some statistics as we onboarded Forerunner. Currently, the program hosts forward faces over 3,000 elevation certificates to the public. There's over 15 custom GIS layers that are available also. Our Forerunner team, who I work with once a month, they are very responsive. Anything that we want to add to this system, we can add to this system. So that's, if it's GIS layer, we can put it in this. So that's another very, very great aspect of this tool. Since this has been onboarded, you can see back in November, we had 84 public hits. We have been getting public hits exponentially ever since that onboarding back in November. So we've had over 2,400 public hits from the outside. So with that, it just shows that the tool's being used, it's getting out there to the people that need it. And with that, I open it up to questions.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and very impressive. It looks like it's all a win-win, and the 20% off on flood insurance is fantastic. So thank you very much for what you do, and keep doing it.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions, anyone else? No? Okay, thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you, Commissioners. We certainly appreciate all the hard work that our floodplain management crew takes care of for us. The next item for your consideration is an ask. We're requesting approval and to authorize the chair to sign the Walton County Roadway Activities Application Road Closure Request to allow a temporary road closure of County Road 280 and 280A for the outdoor event, the 4th annual Sprint Triathlon that's held in conjunction with the May Lake Fest celebration. This will be on May 3rd this year.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second on the floor. Any discussion? I have one question. Are you running in this?
I don't know.
All in favor, say
I might
aye.
write about it.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Okay, Public Works.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is request to accept the Public Works quarterly report for January through March of this year. Mr. Caraway.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just want to present to you our quarterly report for the first quarter of 2025. I want to take an opportunity to highlight a few of our accomplishments, some of the projects we've completed. Then I'll briefly go over a couple of the projects we have underway right now. Our crews were able to pave approximately 4.2 miles of roadway. We performed routine custodial maintenance along about 1,050 miles of county road and right-of-way. We constructed and installed over 800 signs throughout the county. Our staff also processed over 200 driveway connection permits this quarter, responded to over 2,600 customer service requests, and our fleet maintenance crews were able to complete nearly 1,400 work orders in this first quarter. Some of the key projects that were completed were the completion of the Dirt to Pave initiative at Harrison Road. We resurfaced County Road 283, McDaniels Fish Camp Road, and Wagon Wheel Road, as well as completed some drainage improvements at Bay Grove Road and Mallet Bayou Road. We were also able to complete a safety enhancement at Freeport Elementary School, which included a new crosswalk just north of the school. And then we were able to work with the Driftwood Homeowners Association to resurface their walking path at their park. Some of the projects that we have going on right now, where our drainage crews are working on the Forest Shore drainage and pedestrian improvements in Miramar. We have Alice Beach and Beach Lane drainage improvements. We're doing another Dirt to Pave initiative at Carly Court. We're resurfacing Matthews Road right now. We're also working on Morrison Springs park improvements, along with some pedestrian improvements on South Norwood, and Paxton Senior Center. And we've got several other projects coming up this next quarter. And I want to thank our crews with Public Works. They work hard, and we appreciate all they do. And thank y'all for your support.
Thank you very much. You stay pretty busy, absolutely. When you said 800 signs, I think I probably asked you for 500 of those.
We could probably triple that number.
But no, seriously, you're doing there's a lot going on in the county. There really is a lot. There's a lot of movement. Some of these things have been on the books for years, and it takes time to get them to where they're at now, and it's really exciting to see some of these things come to fruition. So thank you and your team and everybody. And I know that, what month is month for Public Works?
Public Works Month is May 18th through the 24th.
Okay, wonderful, well-deserved. Thank
All right,
you.
Madam
Any
Chair.
comments? Certainly.
Scott, is Mossy Head Main Street on the second quarter?
It is, it's funded for this year for construction. It's probably gonna be later this summer, early fall, before we get out there. We may get to it a little bit sooner, it just depends on how quick some of these projects we're working on get completed. But we definitely hope to get that project done before this year's over with. But we're thinking late summer, early fall. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
Scott. One last thing.
Yes, sir.
Do we have a CO on the Mojo building?
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. But the contractor is
They're-
nearing completion?
They are nearing completion, but I don't think we have the CO on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And one last thing, Public Works Day, where we celebrate with the Public Works Cook-Off is May 8th.
8th.
May 8th. Hope to see y'all there.
See you there,
right.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all.
We haven't gone into the Mojo building yet?
We have not because of the fire suppression system. So we have a contractor in there that is completing that work. Last report I was given, he was finishing up with putting some ceiling work back in and finalizing that job, and we should have a CO.
What year did we buy that building?
2021.
Okay.
It's that government thing again that I heard so much about.
I think so. Hello, Brian Kellenberger, how are
Good
you?
afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm Brian Kellenberger. Appreciate your time this afternoon. A few items of business. Item number 28 is request to approve and authorize chair to sign change order number 2 to contract number 2407 with Grand Bay Commercial Construction LLC for the Cessna Park Land Improvement Project, increasing the contract amount by $24,569.13. This is for some additional work that was done on the project and some unknown conditions underneath the gravel that was out there and underneath the water where we put the docks in.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could y'all go back to the first sheet? Not that one, not that one. To the right there. I just wanted to point out, this project, which was not that big a deal, started in 2022, and here we are. So
It's normal then.
I'm just pointing out to y'all, if y'all expect things to go fast, it ain't going fast, but I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. Appreciate it.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Anyone want to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 29, request to approve and authorize the chair to sign change order number 2 to contract number 24-08 with J.M. Phelps Construction LLC, increasing the contract price in the amount of $80,385,000 for changes necessary for the completion of the Grayton Beach Municipal Parking Facility. The bulk of this cost change was due to the change in construction sequencing, where we kept open a larger portion of the project than we had asked them to do at the beginning, and also a change to the electrical power. Originally, the power was going to come off of a transformer at the road. Chucko decided it would be better to put a transformer behind the building. And then there were a few other small changes, some stucco to the back side of the building, and paint on a retaining wall that I thought would look better for a finished project.
As I would note, as I make the motion to approve, if you'll scroll back down, this one started in 2021. March 9th, 2021. And
I appreciate you pointing that out.
I'll second.
I'm just saying,
Second.
Okay, we have a
anybody
motion.
thinks this stuff moves fast,
This actually started in early 16 when we bought
Oh,
it.
yeah, this-
Bought the property? Yes.
Yeah.
So, it it's,
I'll give y'all a break. It only took 9 years.
yeah, it was bought from Mr. J. Odom, and it was planned
It's been a long time
a
coming.
long time. It was
Yeah.
bought actually before I got on the board, and,
Longer than normal.
longer
Yeah.
than normal.
Okay.
And it's just that these things take a
Yeah.
while.
It will. So we'll have a ribbon cut. Do we finish the vote?
No, we didn't. We've got a motion and a second on the floor. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Appreciate it.
passes.
We'll
Thank
have a
you.
ribbon cutting for both these projects in the near future, and we'll be reaching out to your offices to coordinate.
Thank you.
Item number 30, request to approve the purchase of a John Deere CP 40G cold planer, an amount not to exceed $33,500. This is a milling device that goes on the front of a skid steer that we're going to use for multi-use path repair projects in the near future. And it is being purchased out of surplus from our vehicle purchase for the FY25 budget.
I'll motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Last item, number 31, is request to award invitation to bid number 2434 for the Driftwood Road Municipal Parking Facility Project to Elite Building Group. And request to approve and authorize chair to sign contract number 2434 in the amount of $2,210,719.12.
In the interest of beating a dead horse, June 22, 2021.
Yeah, we
And I
actually did
make
this
a
one pretty
motion to
quick.
approve.
I second it.
I think I went to a meeting on what that should look like back in 2019 or something.
Y'all just making my case better.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Appreciate y'all's
Thank you
time
very
today,
much.
and
I'm glad
I
this
could,
stuff is finally coming through, though. It's,
Yeah.
we'll have to really celebrate. So we expect some,
Getting
really
some
nice ribbon
completed and
cuttings.
getting some started.
Ryan, thank you for being my
Fantastic.
straight man.
I'm not going to ask that. Okay, I believe, Mr. Atkinson, it's
Thank you,
yours.
Madam Chair. Item 32, I'm hereby advising the board that pursuant to 286.011 sub 8 of Florida statute, I'm in need of the board's advice concerning litigation strategy and the type of expenses to be incurred in 2 cases, which will be Samuel A. Osborne versus Walton County, Florida First District Court of Appeal, case number 1D 2021-3898, which is an appeal from lower tribunal case number 2017 CA 607 out of the Circuit Court of Walton County, and the newly filed Walton County Circuit Court case 25 CA 56. Therefore, I'm requesting approval to schedule and advertise a special meeting for an executive session. The date on that will be May 13th. It had been my intention to have it for this Thursday. I can tell you we have been working to get a court reporter available for this Thursday's board meeting. We contacted a roster that we go through pretty regularly, ended up having to expand outside of that roster. We received 5 immediate no. We have conflicts or other court dates that day out of the 7 we contacted, and we've had 2 others not contact us back as of 9 minutes ago, per my message with the county attorney's office. So I simply see no way I can recommend the board schedule it for this Thursday, given the unavailability of court reporting services. Frankly, I could probably try to get somebody to come all the way over from Tallahassee or further, but the cost of that, when I'm still not even sure they exist, is going to be the challenge with the time change for that board meeting and the fact it would not be set at a time certain. Accordingly, May 13th is when I'm asking. May I please have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the May 13th meeting for executive session. Any comment from the audience? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 33, this is a,
Mr. Atkins,
Yeah.
did you put a time limit on, a time on?
it'll be before your regularly scheduled board meeting, so likely we will start at 11 a.m., but I'm going to make sure that we don't have anything else lined up on that date.
Okay, thank you.
So with 33, this is a discussion and a request for some direction regarding meeting procedures. We've talked about this a couple different times, talked about it with a couple different chairmen. I know, talked about it with both the prior 2 of the chairmen we have up here, Commissioners Anderson and Gleib. I've spoke about it with Chair Johns. And when Commissioner McCormick was here, Commissioner Curry's predecessor, the chairman, we worked with admin to work on bringing back some meeting procedures. And we've had a lot of discussion about our meeting procedures over the last few meetings, in the last couple months. The biggest thing I want to make sure I get good direction on is when we started this process with Chair McCormick, the focus on the meeting procedures was primarily related to public participation and involvement in the meetings. So if I were to present what was developed prior to his tenure in 2022, along with some of the changes that occurred in late 23 there, you're not going to find much different about how your meetings run other than how the public participates. But I've had a lot of questions, and we've talked up here about parliamentary procedure and things like that. And I feel like the two issues have been conflated, and there's no reason they can't be. But I want to be sure before I bring you something, you're saying, well, we're looking at how we're going to handle the governance of our own interactions at the dais, and there's nothing about that in here. Well, I just wasted a bunch of time bringing you something about how the public interacts with you, or vice versa. If I bring you something that deals with the board's parliamentary procedure, that doesn't govern the interaction with the audience in the form of the agenda. So what I'm really looking for is direction. Is this something you want me to deal with one, the other, both? We have not had a true rewrite of this going back well over 4 years. We had a very small revision in July of 2021 that dealt with add-ons to the agenda. Prior to that, we get back into 2019, 2018 range before any substantive rewrites of your policy were done. And from 2015 through that window, there have been several revisions to the board policy. And so I'm just looking for guidance. Is this something where you want me to sit down and work on bringing you a more comprehensive meeting procedures guide? I know it certainly is a help to the chair. That's why I have always talked about this with the chair, that deals with both public participation and how our meetings run. Or do you want me to focus my efforts more on one side or the other? Or tell me, hey, we got enough on our plate, this isn't what we want to do right now?
I would say we would want both, and I would like to look at adopting Robert's rules, which would be a lot simpler.
I will spare my comments on that for another day. There's some legal cautions I'm going to have to give you on that.
If you got a better one, that's fine too, but I think we need to adopt something as far as rules that not only can we readily find, but the public can.
Right.
I concur with you, and I'll simply say, because again, it's a much longer diatribe I think I'm going to have to give you that I don't want to belabor now. The general advice I think you're going to hear from almost every local government and attorney in the state of Florida is, due to certain case law that's evolved, when you adopt a specific parliamentary procedure guide, not your own rules where you take this from Roberts, this from parliamentary, this from Rosenheim's, but you adopt the whole book, you have to follow that whole book. And the moment you step outside of one sentence on one page of that book, you give someone out there in that audience that wants to challenge your action a free shot in court to set your action aside. It is as much of a silver bullet to undoing government action as sunshine violation. So what I would say is, I'm not opposed to Robert's rules. I'm not opposed to assisting this. I'm not opposed to being a quasi-parliamentarian for you. I've functioned in those capacities. I feel capable of setting that up very well for the board, but I want you to look at a variety of options. Yes, I think the board needs a more robust set of parliamentary rules than what we have right now governing board meetings, and I can certainly bring that back, but I will at least ask you to indulge me that perhaps the blanket adoption of a 300-page text may not serve the board's benefit as much as you want.
So is there a problem with picking the best from each of those rules and making our own Walton rules?
Absolutely not, and that's what most are recommended to do, is to pick the areas. For instance, I'll give a great example of why some parliamentary, and I'm not going to pick on Roberts here for this point, but it's on many. Some parliamentary procedure manuals draw distinctions between large deliberative bodies and small deliberative bodies. And I know Commissioner Drake's dealt with that before. The problem is, when you look at those distinctions, you're a body of 5, and so you would be, by definition, a small deliberative body under Roberts. However, when you look at what those rules are versus a large deliberative body, you are a legislative body tasked with policy. Therefore, that means many of the rules for debate that Roberts has for a large deliberative body is more appropriate for a legislative body than for a small deliberative body, which is meant to be, say, an executive committee of a larger body. So there are things like that where, yes, we want to mold together what works best for this board and give you a chance. I think we could put something together. I have a variety of examples. This is not something I have not done elsewhere. I just want to make sure I'm going in the right direction and not spending an inordinate amount of time on
And
something the
say
board
both.
doesn't want.
I agree
I say-
with Commissioner, what's your name?
Curry.
Curry.
I'm a big tall guy.
I agree with Commissioner Curry about this, I really do. I think that it should be kind of something that we put together from other things, but I also believe it should also include the audience's portion of it as well.
Of course.
So both.
And I would like, maybe a time certain to be back. Maybe not 2 meetings, but
Let's look at your,
within the century.
why don't we look at the, in the abundance of caution, let's look at your first meeting in June.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable to give you at least a starting point, because there's gonna be a lot of discussion on that. So if the board's willing to indulge me that amount of time, I think that's less than 60 days, but it gets us close to 45. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So what we're essentially doing is, currently we're operating off a hybrid form of our own procedures are a hybrid form of a methodology of parliamentary order. And so what we're doing is we're going to change from what we currently have to another version of what we currently have. Is that correct, Clay?
I think the better way to look at it is a more robust version of what we have. Right now, you don't really have anything in procedure that governs rules of debate in writing. It doesn't directly address a board member gaining the floor, losing the floor, and what motions are or are not appropriate. And so I think some of what we're gonna do is just put down into process, and I try to think of it from a new commissioner. If a new commissioner comes on this board and they ask, hey, for this first meeting, where do I need to look at how I make a motion or how I get the chair's attention? Well, I can sit down and talk to Commissioner Curry for 4 hours about parliamentary procedure, or I can hand him the set of rules. If I hand him a set of rules right now, it's not gonna give him much guidance on that. So it's more of just building that out, and it's, yes, exactly what you described. It's taking our hybrid form of rules and not going to something different, but memorializing some of how that works. And I think we also probably need to clean up some inconsistency that has evolved over the years about motions for reconsideration. And the biggest thing I would like to clean up, that I think we absolutely have to be clear about, is the distinction that we discussed at length in the last meeting. We know what happens in a tie vote on planning issues. We don't have a rule that lays out how a tie vote works in terms of, does it defeat the motion, defeat the action? I had to sit up here and pontificate about that, but let's put that in writing. What happens when that happens? When can it be brought up? What are the terms and how we want it? A lot of boards, especially commissions and councils, have rules in place that if the board is short a member and a matter's tied, the action is automatically denied and tabled to the next meeting until a full board is present, so that it has to come back up. But there are things like that we can talk about. And I can bring you some examples, circulate it. I would love anybody's input, including yours. I know you've chaired and worked through a variety of different procedural-based meetings that aren't necessarily the strict old parliamentary stuff.
So I had a two-part question, and you answered the second part with your comments. But from the one that's going to be authoring this and delivering it for us for revisions or approval, I would like to know from the other board members, if you take what we have now, which has, it's been useful and practical, and it needs modifications for all the reasons that you stated, but I want to know from the other board members what we've been doing that's not working that we want to see changes to.
Mayor?
Sure.
Well, that right there, for one. I mean, I'm guilty of it, and interrupting people when they're trying to possibly set their motion. I've went to a couple of your meetings, and I loved, I mean, you recognize people, they have the floor, that's the only person that talks. When they're done, we don't have that here. I see that when your chair of the TTC, love every minute of it, but we don't have that here. And I would just like to maybe kind of work that in here. And I'm guilty as much as anybody else for interrupting. I'm not saying I don't, but I like having this set up for both the audience and us, actually in a something to look at, like he was stating, like Clay was stating. But I applaud your decorum at the TDC, and I wish we had that here at times, so.
Sometimes it's hard
It
to
is.
break up when there's 3 and 4
It
people.
is.
One of the things I think that we need to consider is, we brought Zoom in during COVID, and Zoom really, when we've tried it at the last few meetings, it really hasn't worked. Either the individual is on mute and has left the room by the time we're trying to get him, and it's just hasn't worked. So I think it's time we kind of delete that from our procedures and wait, and if there's another time where it needs to be brought up, then we relook at it. But it just hasn't worked. So I just think that's something that we could eliminate.
Well, I would, I would agree, but I would also, just add that anytime there's an emergency or a extraordinary situation where we might need Zoom, 3 of us can vote to suspend the rules. So,
Right.
but I don't see as a regular practice it's beneficial. In fact, it's detrimental. I agree with you, but I think we can always supersede the rules if we have to.
Madam Chair, I would suggest that, and I know that's what he's probably planning on doing, is Mr. Adkison comes around and meets with every one of us, and we have a list of things we think that need to be changed, need to be kept, or, revised a little bit. So
Right.
I think that's the best way for us to do it.
Yeah, I think that's good too. Everybody, what he's saying is that our attorney would come and meet with each one of us and get our ideas, our thoughts and everything, and put together different options and bring it back to us.
We'll be glad to do that, understanding that if commissioner availability due to schedules get tight, I'll give you an update on that June 6th meeting if I'm not able to have a full document based on 5 schedules, but I'll make it work.
Can we email you something in case, maybe speed
Absolutely.
that up a little bit?
Absolutely. Send me
We don't
whatever you
necessarily-
got, and we'll still get together. I think all of you know how to get a hold of me. I talk to y'all at all hours of the day, weekend. I don't think that's ever really been a challenge, but we'll make do. But I want to be sensitive to your schedules on this, but we will get it moved as expeditiously as possible, and I have my direction. Thank
Sounds
you.
great. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
since we can't discuss this outside of sunshine, this is the only opportunity that we have to talk to each other and gain the necessary input or the commonality of the ideas or disagreements. So that, you were going somewhere else, Commissioner Craig, and thank you for the kind comments, I appreciate that. With the, oh yeah, do you want me to start that whole monologue over? No, thank you. What would be some of the suggestions or the concerns with we answered some of what our concerns are as far as processes in parliamentary, and then the other side of that coin was the involvement of the general public. What is some of your concerns or suggestions as far as altering the public portion?
I don't think, sometimes when folks are at the podium and the buzzer goes off and, they need another 60 seconds or something to finish their thought or something like that. I mean, I'm going back looking through BCC meetings now. You can ask IT, I'm having some issues. But I'm trying to look at previous and past meetings and see what works, what doesn't work. I've looked at TDC meetings, I've looked at the planning meetings. I don't have anything per se to write down to you now from the audience perspective, other than I want them to have the best opportunity to voice their opinions to us or what they're wanting to discuss with us without and I know you gotta have a time limit, but I mean, I think there's probably some gray area that we could probably fit in there to give them a few extra minutes or whatever the case may be, not all of them. But I know you're playing both sides on that. I just don't know. To answer your question, I don't have anything to give you right now, but I'd love to answer that question after I look at a few more BCC meetings.
I think, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody. But I think there's far too many times that we interrupt citizens at the podium. The way it's supposed to be is they get 3 minutes to make their comments. And we have gotten way too lax, and all of us, and like I said, I'm as guilty as anybody, of interrupting people, and then you gotta stop the clock, and then you start to, they get their 3 minutes. When the citizens are finished, the board has a chance to talk without citizen input. So there's just far too much given. It's more like a debate society than it is a board meeting.
I agree with that 100%. I would much rather see the citizens come up and speak for their 3 minutes, and if you go over with one, then you have to go over with another. So you have to be very careful with that. But let them come up there and speak and say what they have to say and not interrupt them. And then when they're done and they sit down, then
That's it.
you can, that's it. And, I mean, if you want to respond to it at that point, but the individual doesn't come back to the podium.
But then we got to add that in there, because if we ask them a question.
But we shouldn't be asking
We
them
shouldn't be
questions.
asking them a
And
question.
and like I said, I'm as guilty as
No,
anybody. So, I was always told if you point that finger, you got 3 more
That's
coming
right.
back at you.
That's
So
right.
I accept
That's
that, but I think we need to tighten those rules up. And 3 minutes is a long time if you let people talk.
It is.
But when you're stopping them and starting them and stopping them, it
And then we
don't
ask
work.
questions back and forth.
And then once they've gone to sit down,
That's
then they
it.
don't come back up to the podium. And we don't bring them back up to the podium.
That was part of the rules at one point in time, and I can't figure out exactly when it dropped out. But there was a period of time somewhere between 2010 and 2015 where that disappeared from the rules, that once the speaker has relinquished the podium, they have surrendered the remainder of their time on that item.
And they get one shot, because
Right.
sometimes we have 15, 20 people.
Exactly.
The other thing, as an example of things that more apply to procedure, is the way we're doing the agenda is, antiquated. And we could do it better, more efficiently, and tighter, so that the meetings don't take 7 hours.
Right.
But, I'm not sure exactly how we accomplish that, but I think we could get there and not have 7-hour board meetings.
Well, and I think, this is probably gonna be, I don't know, but we have public comment. If you're not gonna be here for something that's going to be brought up during the meeting, if you're not gonna be here, you have public comment where you can speak to it. And then you can, if it's voted on, you can speak to it then. So I'm not so sure why we have the other public comments at the very end, because usually, it's either not about anything that's been on the agenda at all, or something that's already been through the process. So I just don't know that that's even necessary to have that, and I think there was a time before where that wasn't, that we did not have that, is that correct?
We've had public comments being done a variety of ways. And we'll look at that, and one thing I want to be clear to the board about before there's any concern, when we talk about public participation, the goal is to make it easier and more orderly for the public as well as the board. It's not about eliminating public comment. It's not about restricting it. But it also is one of the things, and you've all sat up here and had this happen, and I know members of the audience have all sat here and had it happen to them. The people who come to these meetings regularly know that if they get up here to talk about something that's not on the agenda, they're not going to get action. They're not allowed to. But we have some people who show up at a first-time meeting thinking that they can stand up and ask, and they get told, well, no, we can't do it, and we're up here trying to politely tell them, no, we cannot do something today for a variety of legal reasons, and they just sat through a 6-hour board meeting to ask one thing. So it's one of the ways to address that, and I will definitely work with admin to bring this back, is making our citizen request to be on the agenda process much more well-defined. That's what you and I talked about before, Madam Chair, is that there's a period of time where that submission process was a very different process. The vetting of it, getting it on there, and then also making it clear, nothing stops any of you. Any of you can put anything you want on this agenda. And so if a constituent comes to you and wants you to put something on the agenda, you have the unilateral right to do so without regard to what anybody else thinks. Now, We may be like, hey, you can't say this, you can't do this, you're breaking this law, you're doing that. We'll try to keep you from doing it, but ultimately, you have that ability. And so if a member of the public really wants something to be heard by the board where it can be voted on, if it can't fall under a citizen's request to be on the agenda and they can't find one of 5 commissioners to even advance the topic, it does beg the question, how much of that is ripe for the board meeting? It may become ripe later, but it may not be at that point. So we'll work on that and I'll bring some things back to you. And I'll get with each of you.
So my final remarks would be that I think the goal here for everyone, for us, for the general public, is to make sure that, one, we establish an orderly process, and that that we achieve the ultimate efficiencies in accomplishing whatever it is we have to do to satisfy the law, our own laws, and the laws that exist above us. I want us to make sure, though, that we, in my opinion, we want a rigid set of rules, but we don't want to box ourselves in. If we're having a discussion or a debate, or if there's something taking place that the general public brings forward that introduces lively conversation or something that's very important, that's very urgent, that comes with consequences, I don't want our rules to prohibit us from being able to evaluate the content of what's being said so that we can make the most informed decision available. I don't want us to get into a position where it's like, well, because of this, we can't answer that, but what you have to say is really going to change the dynamic of whether or not this is good or not. So I just want to make sure, what I think would ultimately achieve that is that if we establish a very rigid set of rules and processes, but empower the chair to use discernment in being able to call the balls and the strikes on whether or not someone gets an extension, or whether or not they're denied an extension, or whether or not one of us has the floor or not have the floor. I think if we write the rules rigid but empower the chair, then it becomes her sole responsibility in making that decision, and then we live with the decision that she, as chair, has ruled, and then we move on. And if she says, yeah, we can grant an extension, then we do, and if she says, no, we don't, well, then it's denied and we move on.
I can assure you that's going to be the case. I think you'll probably like part of the ordinance you're about to hear next, because I actually discussed that in a paragraph about giving chairs authorities in our boards that would be the public's opportunity to talk. You have my assurance I'm not going to write something that excludes the public's ability to engage this board, because this is their opportunity, not just because state statute says we can't, but because that's what the goal is. More of my comments, I think, to Chairman John's point, was let's hear the public on the items that they can be heard on and the board can be heard on and we can do something about. And perhaps let's curtail hearing about things that we can do nothing about at this dais. Somebody may want to stand up and talk about, well, they have a concern about this, this, and this, and we look at them and say, you need to call the governor, you need to write your congressman, you need to write a U.S. senator. This is just totally not a Walton County issue. But we've now spent 5 to 10 minutes of this board's time, and also the other members of the public's time, when we would have rather had that 5 to 10 minutes perhaps to debate, more time to debate the issues you're talking about. So that's where we want to focus the public's ability to engage us on the issues the board's going to take up.
Well,
and I think we can help with that.
I think, and I'm sure Commissioner Anderson remembers, but there's a rule that, it may be the last thing we actually changed in the rules, says you can only speak 15 minutes total in a board meeting. Mm-hmm. The genesis of that rule was somebody who got up and lectured us for 3 minutes on trains and train tracks in South Walton that didn't ever exist, and among other things, and then had spirits talk to us. So we had to come up with a rule to limit her, because she was taking an hour of a meeting at one time.
At each item, I think she spoke on each item.
She spoke, but it wasn't about the item, it was about
It may
The
start off
Indians,
as the house.
yeah, the Indian zone and stuff.
Yeah.
Those
So-
may be,
And that's-
those might
and
be the
that-
ones I need to look at.
You need to look at them, 2019 and 2020.
And it did literally, depending on how many items we had. I mean.
10
Vice
items
Chair-
added 30 minutes to every
Yeah,
meeting.
Vice Chair, Mr. Curry, you have 35, 36, 37, 38, 39. That's 5 items. And
Now you get
that was
three.
another 5 minutes.
So that's 15 minutes.
That was 15 minutes
These
of
should be
irrelevant
quick, I
comments.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, and that's why it was changed.
But it
to
wasn't
limit.
quick with her.
Right.
No, it wasn't.
So,
this the one with the tinfoil on it?
Yes, that one,
Yes.
yes. And
Let's,
So
let's
and-
rein in
and
the direct
you'll-
comment there.
you'll be able to.
there's
okay.
always safeguards, because even, and Commissioner Drake's point about the chair. Well, 3 of us have the right to override the chair, if we need to. I mean, if we think we need to. I mean, there's always safeguards. And I think the one thing we need to make sure is that the public is afforded due process. And I think the way we do it now does not afford the public due process, because you're waiting to the end let them to say what they want to say, and you can't act on it. Well, what good is that? And I think if we put it all at the first of the meeting and let them talk about when it could actually mean something. And so I think the goal should be to make sure the public has due process in our discussion.
I'll see it done.
I think we're all in agreement on what we're hoping to have come back to us on the first week in June, I believe. Okay, are you going to take this next?
I will, if I may have a motion to open the public hearing for item 34.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's a request to consider an ordinance amending the Walton County Code of Ordinances and the Land Development Code therein to amend in part and repeal in part the prior ordinances and provision of the code pertaining to quasi-judicial decision-making, to provide for the assignment of specified quasi-judicial proceedings to a special magistrate, providing for the process for the specification and assignment, providing for the authority to retain special magistrate services, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date. So what I have presented to you here is the long-awaited ordinance dealing with the transfer of quasi-judicial decisions to a special magistrate. I have presented you, there are 2 critical options here, and nobody throw anything. I have got a potential third option, ask, depending on which one you go with. And I assure you, Madam Chair, this is not one you're going to throw something at me. You're going to be happy when I bring it up, but I can't bring it up until we go through the present ordinance on the table. In sum, you have 2 choices under 1.1103A, and that is to either send all Board of County Commissioner, land use and zoning matter, quasi-judicial decisions to a magistrate, or create a dichotomy between those matters that are deemed contested and those matters that would be uncontested. After much deliberation and thought about this, I think I've shared with several of you individually when I've talked to you about this, I am troubled, even though I find a lot of boards send contested matters there to cut down on the total amount of workload that goes to the magistrate. I am troubled a little bit that we are going to, without knowing what our total workload is and whether or not we're comfortable with that going and the cost associated, create a dichotomy where we may be foreclosing opportunity for legitimate challenge that could be brought on these quasi-judicial matters by creating a contestation scenario and a party status scenario that has to be declared at our level before we send something up. Whereas if we go with option 1, everything's going to go up. It's all going to be one process. We're not going to be looking at people getting into the process late or missing it by the 11th day versus the 10th day, somebody being out of town, notice issues. So I do think the broader solution to start with is good, and understanding that if we do this, I am going to ask the board, please allow planning, admin, and myself to look at the cost and the efficiencies or inefficiencies that come out of this over the first year and determine, do we want to scale this back or is it working? That's the first thing I would say. So to the extent I try not to make recommendations, and this one I do think the broader solution is the better solution than trying to go with option 2 with the inserted language about designating what a contested matter is. So we understand the process. A special magistrate is assigned to hear quasi-judicial decisions of this board. The magistrate will either be through a written contract with DOA, who will assign an administrative law judge, or it provides the board the ability to actually retain an attorney, just like you do for code enforcement proceedings or otherwise. It is, in this case, I'll say unabashedly, my strongest recommendation. Send it to DOA, let them appoint a judge. No conflict of interest is going to find its way into the process. There's no question about, well, our magistrate today was appearing before us 6 months ago, or our magistrate 6 months ago is now appearing before us today. We're not going to get into that. It's going to be a judge or somebody who's assigned as an administrative law judge, that's what an ALJ is, to hear that matter. But I think giving the flexibility, because this is an ordinance and it's harder to change, that's why it's written in as the or. But I do highly recommend the DOA route. DOA has said they are more than happy to take as much work as we can give them. They will be thrilled to do so. They have been very forthcoming. Once the matter is heard by a special magistrate, the process will work like this. A written decision will be issued and sent to us as the Board of County Commissioners. At that time, within 30 days, but not, and I wrote it this way, not later than 3 regularly scheduled board meetings. You should be able to have something heard in 30 days, but it's possible that you have to have that 3rd board meeting because it comes in on the day of a board meeting. So within 3 regularly scheduled board meetings, you have to take action to accept or reject the decision of the magistrate. Now, that's not a public hearing. It is not a public comment opportunity. The reason for that is all public comment will have already been heard. It will have been heard at the TRC, the Planning Commission, public workshops, and as part of that ALJ proceeding in front of DOA if they're affected parties. And more importantly, the applicant's not going to get up here and try to get a second bite at the apple to say, well, we don't like that the ALJ said deny this. Please, you convince, do otherwise. We're going to take the magistrate's findings up whole cloth. They're written determination to you, and you'll accept or reject. And it may be done as part of the consent agenda. So we'll come back to that comment later. That's why I've got to get you through this first part before I talk about what else might be a consent agenda item here in a second. With that being said, if you reject the decision, you have that ability. But you have to identify on the record the errors you find with the findings of fact and conclusions of law. Hey, the magistrate said he finds that this project, which is located on Chat Holly Road, won't significantly increase traffic, but this project's located on Highway 98 at Idlet Beach. What's he talking about? You know, if it's a manifest error, if it's clear error there, you get to say that. And as long as you put the rejection reasons on the record, you have the right to do so. When you say, I reject the magistrate's decision, if your magistrate decision was to approve, your rejection constitutes a denial. Their right, of course, is to appeal to the circuit court. If the magistrate denied and you reject, it constitutes approval. Same situation, appeals are available. Nothing eliminates the right to go to circuit court within 30 days from your acceptance or rejection of the magistrate's decision. Paragraph F, though, goes to something Commissioner Drake just talked about, and that is, and I'm going to read, while it is a very verbose paragraph, and it should surprise no one that I wrote that, I am going to read it because I think it's really important. The Board of County Commissioners recognizes the paramount importance of public input and participation in its planning and development process, and accordingly finds that any quasi-judicial decision that is before its Planning Commission or the Board of Adjustment shall be conducted in 2 stages. An evidentiary hearing whereby county staff and the applicant will each present their case through sworn witnesses and testimony, and at the conclusion thereof, Part 2, a public hearing section. This goes to your point, Commissioner Drake, which may be limited in scope and duration at the discretion of the board chair, but shall not be wholly eliminated. That is going to eliminate what you have happening right now. We have a full evidentiary hearing, but members of the public want to speak. They may not be giving sworn testimony in the sense of it's an engineered expert opinion, But rather than that person have to deal with objection, they get their opportunity to speak at that time. And the chair will have the discretion to say, look, if I've got 30 people from a neighborhood here and you all have the same problem, it's traffic, come up and tell me that. You don't need to give me 3 minutes on it, but we're going to give you the discretion. We're not setting hard time limits on that public comment in here. We're leaving the decision-making process of those boards to be consistent with Florida law, but letting the form and conduct of the evidentiary hearing to be set by each respective board, unless you choose to set it at your level, and declaring that no specific hearing process has to be followed, provided due process is afforded to all parties. And so the goal there is to eliminate, and you'll note I don't talk about affected parties and 3 or 4 party contested hearings at the planning board. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a situation to let our planning commission, who are your citizen appointees, help guide the process, because that recommendation will go to that administrative law judge. I want to increase public participation in those hearings. And I want to make sure that the public's comment gets to be made part of the record, and that then when it comes up to the administrative law judge, it is in the proper fashion. And he can decide what weight to give the evidence. I think we've all heard that. We'll allow the evidence in and we'll decide what weight to give it. So that is the direction of what we are presenting, and I'll go ahead and bounce out the third option. Should you choose option 1, I would be asking for a separate motion if this ordinance passes with option 1 to direct me to bring back an ordinance that specifies that record plat approvals that are consistent with Florida statute and any adopted county regulations pertaining to a plat approval may be approved under a single public hearing as a consent agenda matter. I can't, due to the single subject requirement, I cannot legally put that in this ordinance and justify it. That's why it's not here, but if you approve number 1, that's gonna be my next ask. And then plats will still be something you do, but we'll do it as part of a consent agenda approval type of scenario that's just done open and shut. So board, to your comments, questions, concerns, and if the answer is we're still not ready to do this, that's okay. We'll re-advertise.
Motion to approve with using option A, or 1.
A1, gotcha.
So you're saying the Board of County Commissioner Land Use and Zoning Matters, you're saying aye? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
1, that's a little
Okay.
1, A
Okay.
sub 1.
Okay.
I just had a question.
Okay.
So we don't have any idea of cost, right?
We know that they are gonna charge us an hourly rate for those administrative law judge services, and we're gonna track those depending on how many of those end up contested. Theoretically, it could be a situation where every matter gets contested, and we're talking about multiple hour hearings that are having to be done. At the same time, it may be that there are less hearings overall, and we don't know exactly what it's gonna come down to. That's why I'm recommending the written contract with DOA, because they're gonna provide us very detailed reporting statistics, and they're gonna help manage that, rather than us trying to put it on Melissa to manage, well, what was the special magistrate's bill for this month? That's what we're not capturing very well right now.
I'm just I'm just trying to figure out, is there any cost differences from what we're doing now that you do? Will that be less work from you that will help out in the,
It could be. I'll say this, the real cost savings on this is it's going to make it much, much easier and legally defensible, because you're gonna have an administrative law judge's opinion that if somebody wants to appeal your decision, that's what's going before a circuit judge in Walton County. So some people now take the appeal just to try to keep the project alive. And so it's not gonna take much off my plate, because my retainer covers these board meetings in full. So if I'm here with you for 12 hours, I get paid the same as if I'm here for 1 hour under that concept of, under that portion of my contract. But what it would change is the board's overall time commitment to, and I hate to say a ministerial matter, because it's more than a ministerial matter, but the vast majority, the way our planning process works, of quasi-judicial decisions that come before you come with staff telling you it meets the land development code and comprehensive plan. and the applicant standing up and saying that, and we have people asking the question of, well, is your staff right? Well, there can be questions about that. There's no doubt about it. But the vast majority of what you have by letter of the law is subject to be approved unless somebody can offer that evidence. And so what we're doing is we're opening up more public opportunity at the planning commission phase than what is currently happening. Those meetings perceptively could get a little longer. I want you to understand that. And I know that's a burden on the planning commission. But if you look at the planning commission and the Board of Adjustments as the people's board, so to speak, who hear that, on quasi-judicial, that's there. The biggest change that I hope this board takes out of it, I hope this board, if it does this, will recognize you didn't just buy yourself 20 extra hours a month of free time. And that if the first time an ALJ rules on something and y'all don't love that ruling, your answer is, well, this is a bad process.
That's where I was going when you got done.
Yeah, I mean, if they rule a certain way, they're gonna be ruling based on the way your code's written. So what I'd ask you to do with that 20 extra hours, take that time to address, okay, look, we just got showed why our code does not function the way we thought it did. We just got educated. So now it's on us as the legislative body, not the judiciary body, to correct the law so that that does not happen again. We can't stop what's already happened. But you do have the right, and Commissioner Drake, I don't know where you're gonna go complete with that point, but I'll say you do absolutely have the fundamental right to reject those findings. You just have to put your reasons on the record. You can't be like, I don't like this administrative law judge. Why don't you like him? Well, he graduated from Florida State. Sorry, some of us did, some of us graduated from Florida, some graduated elsewhere. But it's gotta be a reason in his order, and you ultimately get that ability. And we're retaining and preserving that authority, and I am comfortable that that is legally defensible in court, provided you give me your reasons. Now, if your reason is, I'm never going to approve this, well, that's not an exercise of discretion. There's case law that talks about what judges can do, say judges have broad discretion in varieties of law. And judges all over the state of Florida routinely, in the most broad discretion cases, get their hands slapped by appellate courts when they make a statement, I try to be fair and do this the same way every time. Well, that may be fair, it may be equal, but it's not using your discretion because you're saying you've predetermined that everything's gonna be one size fits all. As long as this board takes the careful decision of saying, hey, look, this one doesn't make sense to me, this is what we've gotta do, that's gonna work. The other thing is, yeah, I very much encourage you. Use that as an opportunity to get ahead of some of this and don't react to bad outcomes. Start looking how are we gonna write our land development code and our comprehensive plan to better govern the broadest range of scenarios so that if anomalies happen, we're not writing law to address the one-off, we're addressing law to address the best needs of the whole county.
The other thing I would say is that, that 20 hours you're saving is overtime for those folks right there, and that's a big bill.
I will say planning's time in this, I've talked to the planning staff about this several times. They feel confident it is going to be a substantial free up of their time being in these public hearings.
That's good. Commissioner Drake, did you have something you wanted to say?
What, how will it be determined on what goes before administrative law judge and what does not?
So anything that constitutes a quasi-judicial decision under Florida law, broadly, those are decisions of the board dealing with all development orders, for example. Development orders are, think about it like this. I'm gonna try to simplify the case.
You answered my question. So my next question was.
Could be small-scale amendments too, though. Things that affect a small class of people that's a vast oversimplification of the rule, but the smaller the effect, the more likely it's quasi-judicial. 100 acres, that could be more people. Large-scale amendments, those type of things.
Now, currently, when we have something that shows up on the agenda as QJ or legislative, how is that do you, as the county attorney, make that determination on how it is presented to us?
Most of the time, it's under the existing 1.1103, and the related sections. There's a chart that says what is and is not. With one glaring example we've talked about too many times already of a conceptual PUD. A detailed PUD is more akin to a development order and therefore should be quasi. A conceptual is a broad policy-based decision and should be legislative. Our code does not distinguish between that. Somehow that got lost in the 2018 amendment. And so now we have to correct that. But otherwise, right now, the chart says that. But ultimately, what I will tell you is we're going to have the same, everything you hear as a legislative matter right now will continue to be heard by you. That we're not mishearing any legislative matters.
But
But it'll track very similarly to what you already have, with that one notable exception.
So, and you touched on this a minute ago, if it's determined to be quasi-judicial, if we're looking at changing up how we get through that process, where we relinquish that over to administrative law judges, if it's determined that it's quasi-judicial, then we'll never see it. It goes straight to...
It'll go from the planning commission to the referrals. Well, let me say this, I shouldn't say you'll never see it. It's entirely possible we may approve the transmittal of the, as part of your consent agenda as a packet of items. You may see those approvals just for ministerial nature, but you will not hear the matter whatsoever until the hearing has been heard and the decision has been rendered to you.
And then we can accept or reject it.
Right, where I was going with this was if there have been instances where all five of us have used our discretion in our interpretation, although we're not judges, we act as if we are in those circumstances. We've used the knowledge that was, the knowledge and the evidence that was presented to us to make an informed decision, and this board has oftentimes made a determination that a project didn't meet approval because it would disrupt the health, welfare, and safety of the general public. And so in a circumstance where we felt like it did not, that it would cause frustration in the health, safety, and welfare of the general public, we've steered clear of that and we've denied projects. However, if it goes to an administrative law judge and they use the tools and the evidence presented to them and they make a different determination, it's like you said, now a judicial precedent has been set that a court of law has now stepped in and said their opinion is A, and if we choose to reject that, then we're going to go to court to ask a judge to overrule what a prior judge has stipulated.
Actually, no, sir. Let me pause there if I can.
Okay.
If we reject the magistrate's decision and put our reasons on the record, and let's say it's because we find health, safety, and welfare. I want to come back to that comment. I do want to put a pin there and come back to that because I think we are probably talking about something that's not going to happen very often given the difference between legislative and quasi-judicial. But assume that happens. The board's decision is the board's decision. We do not have to come to court. We don't have to go to court on that. We enter our decision. And it is not a court of law. It is an administrative hearing. And it's an administrative law judge. He's not a circuit judge. He's not an appellate judge. He's not a Supreme Court justice. But he is our special magistrate. Now, it is going to be somebody who's beyond just a standard bar card carrying attorney. It's going to be somebody who has more wherewithal or knowledge, and this is the hope, and that's the goal of doing it that way. The challenge to the circuit court would be if the person who is on the opposite side of this board's decision wishes to appeal, or alternatively, if this board decision adopts the magistrate's decision and somebody wants to appeal, they go to another court of law, and a judge is not necessarily going to be asking to overturn. And I want to be very clear. I don't think this is about, hey, we have better credibility because a judge already agreed with us. No, it's because you have a legal professional providing findings of fact and conclusions of law that are written by a legal professional after a full evidentiary hearing that cites to the record. There'll be a formalized transcript of all those proceedings that I, as your attorney, can defend your position and that decision based off of. And I'm not asking one of you up here, please say the motion a little better. You're right, but I need this magic word. Well, I'm not allowed to put that in your mouth. But it cleans that up. But it also makes it much clearer when somebody says, well, you had this project and it was denied. Well, those are the facts directly related there. Here are the findings of fact that supported these conclusions of law. Now, back to your point on health, safety, and welfare. When the board has made those calls, in virtually everyone that I can recall sitting up here, that is the legislative determination standard. What you just described is hearing legislative matters where you exercise your discretion because something would not be in the general health, safety, and welfare of the public. I cannot recall this board, on the grounds of general health, safety, and welfare, having denied a quasi-judicial decision while I've been here. We have denied quasi-judicial decisions, and they have been on issues where we have found issues that we believed were not compliant with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, be it a specific traffic provision, stormwater, be it part of a compatibility analysis under specified project categories that required it. So broadly, there's almost zero circumstance where this board would ever be able to deny a quasi-judicial project on general health, safety, and welfare, because that's not the legal standards you're allowed to apply. So if you wanted to do so, you would still potentially be wrong. However, if it comes back and you just feel like this is a problem, you'll have the right to do that. What I would encourage you, though, is if you think our code, as written, allows for the general health, safety, and welfare to be compromised, and our code says, well, this can be done, well, that creates a health, safety, and welfare issue. Change the code. You are the only ones who get to do that. And, and if it's a general health, safety, and welfare, I'm not going to say it is an emergency ordinance. It could be. But if it's a specific health, safety, and welfare issue, that's the very definition of what emergency ordinances are allowed to be enacted for. So you do have those opportunities.
Madam Chair, I just had, because you stated we either have quasi or we have legislative, but I know one up at the north end that we had most recently, wasn't that quasi, but we viewed it as legislative?
No, sir. So so specifically on that project, that was a conceptual PUD. We heard it, and this is the nuance here. It is absolutely a legislative decision. Health, safety, and welfare. What we heard it was under our quasi-judicial decision-making hearing process, because that table in the code says it will be heard under that process. So what we did was we made people get sworn in, which, by the way, we can swear people in on legislative if we want to. Now, why don't we? Because we want to hear people's opinion about general policy. And putting them under oath can work against that sometimes. It's opinion, not fact. With that being said, in that case, it was about the form of the hearing, not the form of the decision.
Okay.
And by the way, I want to be very clear, and this is not meant as a derogatory statement towards our planning department. Mr. Carpenter didn't write this. There's no pride of authorship, I think, on anybody there when this was drafted. The fact that we talk about the form of the hearing relative to quasi-judicial and legislative would make me pull out whatever hair I had if I did have any. Because that's not how courts look at this. Courts are very clear the difference between legislative and quasi-judicial, and has nothing to do with the form of your hearing. It has to do with the nature of the decision. So because of that, just eliminating that's going to at least add a couple butts to my life, just in terms of headache and heartache. So
it sounds like if we have our land development code tight and our comp plan tight, that'll help us make sure that what the judge goes by is accurate and what we want.
I think this may force us to look at that land development code. that's going to be our only in and out of some of this.
The first time an ALJ sends you an opinion back that says the court or that the Division of Administrative Hearings was unable to adequately adjudicate a matter, or that there was a problem because of inconsistencies within your land development code or comprehensive plan, yeah, it's going to force you to. And everybody I've talked to, by the way, I can't find one local government attorney I've talked to about this. And I've talked to well over a dozen, probably closer to 24 at this point, have all said the same thing. Just be prepared when you get some of those orders back. You're going to start staying awake at night worrying about what else in the code has this kind of inconsistency. And I can go ahead and tell you, I heard a chuckle from the audience, I can go ahead and tell you, one of those things we're going to hear is going to be, why do we have coastal center mixed use, coastal center and village mixed use in the order we have them, and one of them that says mixed use doesn't include mixed use? We're going to get that comment back real quick, I promise you, the first time one of those goes up, because the judge says, I have no idea why it says that. But there are things like that that you're going to be asked to correct. And candidly, I think there's a benefit to that happening, because right or wrong, I will take up for staff that it does put our staff in a bad spot when they evaluate a project under the code that they did not legislatively create, and they present it to you and there are problems, and they're being told, well, there's a problem with this, and all they can say in the middle of that hearing is, well, I evaluated what I had in front of me. It puts them in a very difficult position to criticize you as the boss also. The administrative law judge is not going to care about that. Although I will say this, everybody that uses DOA in this has been very pleased that there has been fair and judicious decision-making. The ones that have appointed local land use councils have felt like that at times the decisions have been all over the place, especially if there's been a high volume of workload and they've had multiple attorneys do it. It's been a crapshoot depending on who got the case. The consistency of decisions from DOA has been something people have raved about. But everyone said, just be prepared. Your board's going to find some things they need to clean up within the first few of these hearings.
Well, luckily, we've got DPZ that's going through our land development code and our comp plan now, so hopefully they'll be able to give us a little leg up on that. And so I believe.
Aren't we currently in the proper posture that we're reviewing it now?
Yes.
Didn't
Yes.
we go through?
We just gave them an extension, but we gave them an extension until December, but with the thought that they're going to have it done a lot sooner than that. So, yes, they are working on it, but they're not writing it. So that's something else we have to look at,
They're writing recommendations.
recommendations.
But not rewriting the whole code, that's correct.
So, Commissioner Gladwell, you said that you like one.
And that was his motion,
That
and I
was your
believe
motion, and you
second to
seconded
Anderson.
that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor to go with one,
Need public comment.
which, yeah, wasn't going anywhere yet.
Yeah,
I was just gonna make sure everybody knew where we were.
1.1103A1, which would delete 2 and delete the caveated bracketed section.
Okay. Okay, and any further comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Barbara Morano?
Barbara Morano. I've been here since 11 o'clock just to be at this moment in time. I've been at this podium for many years with quasi-judicial, with legislative, with zoning changes, with so many things, and I think you recognize that. And I sincerely thank you for getting to this point. Clay, you hit the nail on the head, because when you mentioned coastal center mixed use.
I knew who was chuckling, Barbara.
Yeah, all right. I've had issues, we've had issues, you all have issues with the code. And it has put you in a very unusual situation with planning. And I think if the end result is to get clarity in the code, I say go for it. DPZ is really looking at the broader picture. They're not going to look at coastal center mixed use. They're not going to look at village mixed use. They're not going to look at neighborhood, small neighborhood. I've just had a discussion with a man who wants to bring in a restaurant with us. And looking at neighborhood commercial versus small neighborhood, and the code does not help the community with this particular issue. But that's another story. But I do have a question, though, on this ordinance, just for clarity and for someone who's even texting me about clarity. If you go to 1, which is what this means, that includes section F that you read aloud, Clay, correct?
So 11, the way it will be printed in the code book is section 1.1103.
Right.
The primary numbered list is A through F.
A through L.
A through F.
A through F, okay.
Yeah,
so
and then you have subparts.
Okay.
The A will not have, A will just have the single subpart 1, or it will just become part of section. It will just merge in. The only other subparts are under B, 1 and 2. Everything else applies, so the ordinance applies across the board to everything.
Okay, and let me bring up F, section F, because again, that was confusing, but not to me. In other words, the public will have a chance to be in front of the Planning Commission. The public will have a chance to be in front of the ZBA. Hopefully, there's no lawyer who will be in back of me jumping up and down.
Well, they don't get that anymore under number 2 of that paragraph. If you read F2, you have an evidentiary hearing under F1, and an evidentiary hearing is where you get to say objection. But under the public hearing section, there are no objections. There's no, I can't allow this person to testify.
Right.
They're not a stormwater expert. No, that is going to guarantee. And now the chair's gonna have some discretion about how that forms, and that's why I didn't write the rules into this ordinance, Barbara. I did not want this board to say that if the chair wants to let everybody have 5 minutes, and because there are 5 people in the room, that the chair can't do that. I wanted the chairs of those boards in those public hearing sections to be able to welcome public comment and dialogue, much like Commissioner Drake talked about, so that we get more public input into the process that then goes before that magistrate rather than less.
And I appreciate that. So I'm here to say thank you. I think this is going to work going forward, and I certainly look forward to doing a lot of looking at our code so we can make better decisions in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And it really does mean a lot to hear you say that, what you just said, so thank you for doing that. Okay, we have a...
Madam Chair,
Yes.
question for the attorney. We're parsing through 2 separate, tell me if I'm wrong or I'm not. We're having to parse out 2 separate substantive issues in 2 separate conversations, right? We're talking about changes to the land development code as one. This is how I see it. And then the second is the appropriate body that's going to make the determinations of the land development code, right?
If I may recharacterize your second point, I think it is more about the method and manner of which certain small matter code-based decisions will be administered, not policy-based decisions, which are your legislative. So it's not necessarily about whether you hear it or not, because you are going to hear it. You're going to have to approve those findings of that magistrate. You will always have that right. But what you're asking is for there to be a subject matter, an issue expert, to conduct a formalized hearing process and deliver findings of fact and conclusions of law, so that, as I think every single person in this dais has said to me at least once, well, I'm not a judge, I'm not a lawyer, how do I make that decision? And by the way, why did I have 5 cases in this binder and 10 cases in this binder, and was I supposed to read all of those? The ALJ will read all of those. So what I'm suggesting is, who provides the hearing and the manner of that hearing is what you're taking up. If you agree to do that, the second part of that is, okay, let's say they pass back a ruling that says your code would support this project or this development order being issued, and this board says they don't like it. Well, of course, you still get to deny it. But what you should take out of that is that an independent third party that has nothing to do with Walton County read your land development code, looked at that project that everybody up here says, that's terrible, but said your code allows it. Well, what it should tell you is now we need to make changes to the code to clean that up. What you don't get, and no board does, I don't want to pick on you as a board or your staff, no board in the heat of the moment sitting up here has the ability to both be judge in a QJ matter and also be the legislator to change it, because you can't change it midstream. And you finish one of these QJ meetings that we're in for 9 hours, sometimes stuff just gets dropped. I mean, it's on to the next issue. And so the idea is to make more efficient use of your legislative priority where you have all the discretion in the world. That's the way I would view it. But the adoption today is of a magistrate to conduct quasi-judicial hearings of this board and return those decisions to you for final approval or rejection.
Okay, and we have a motion and a second. Anyone else in the audience want to speak to this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Madam Chair, can we take a 5-minute
Yes.
break?
Can I
That
just
was
get,
4-1, and Commissioner Drake, nay.
can I get the board to make a motion to direct me to bring back an ordinance that places all record plat approvals into a quasi-judicial consent agenda format?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Barbara? Okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion to close the public hearing, please.
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Okay.
Now
All in
you
favor
can
say
go,
aye.
sir. Sorry, I
Okay.
had to get us out of the
Okay,
public
thank you.
hearing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry. I got a phone call from a young man that uses this area, so I went out there and took some pictures, and if the board is okay, I'd like to go ahead and replace as you can see, the existing basketball goals with some newer commercial. The poles, I looked at it and I consulted with Brad, and they're fine. The poles are fine, so just the backboards, the rims, and then I asked Buddy for a kind of a quote on re-asphalting up to 1.5 inches, and then restriping that area. And I think I have the quote at 11. And that's a little bit of fluff in there, just in case there's something that's needed. So the remaining, or the balance, would go back into the rec plat fee. So I'm just asking to get that done.
Madam Chair? Mr. Sunday, since this is the one we don't own, but we do use it for a polling place, I'm assuming we got an MOU with them.
We have done some work on this particular facility in the past. I believe it was some replacement of some windows and some roof, and Melissa can speak to it, but we just entered into an agreement with the owner of the property.
You got a motion?
Yeah, motion.
Second.
So the county does not own this, but we use it as a polling booth, is that correct?
And, Madam Chair,
Yes.
that was 11,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
and it's not going to cost that much, so I would say the
I
balance.
just wanted that on,
Yeah.
but you just said 11.
Yeah.
I just wanted.
I think Buddy told me, and I don't know if he's here or not, but I think he told me somewhere around 5 or 6, and these commercial grade basketball goals are about 1,100 apiece, so, you know, I just put a little fluff in there in case.
Yeah.
There's always something comes up.
That you don't catch.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Any comment from the audience? Any comment? Any comment? Excuse me. Any comment from the audience? No? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any nays? No? Passes 5-0. Okay. You
All right,
next.
the next one, I went out and met with Gilbert at Grady Brown, and you can kind of see him there a little bit in the picture. These piles are about $250 a piece, and I spoke with Brad as well, and they're asking if we could put them, for safety, if you could go a little bit more. All right, stop right there. For safety aspects, when them boats come up to that area, they kind of get hooked under the existing seawall or whatever you want to call that. And they're just asking, and I said up to 50, to put them in front of fill the rest of them out in front of the restroom area, and then exactly across where the flag is. So the boats can park, use the restroom, they can tie up, their boats aren't banging up against the seawall and all that. So I'm asking this to be taken out of the vessel registration fund to make this happen.
Is that a motion?
Yes, sir.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. And how much is that going to be?
I think I put it on here. I can't remember now. Because if you do up to 50 at $250 a pop.
And that's all coming out of that vessel registration fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's a great idea.
Commissioner, there's an item in here that says materials only, estimated cost $17,000.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Yes, that's it.
thank you.
Because I mean, I don't know how to figure, labor since we're doing it in-house and all that, so I'm just going by materials only. So,
We have a motion and a second. Any more comments from the board? Any comments from the audience? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
all right, the next one. And I don't know what fund I could take this out of. I don't know if it's rec plat fees or I'll be glad to use my office discretion funds.
You're on 37.
What am I?
You're on 30.
It's the flags, right?
37. No, you're on the request for
Yep,
update
you're
on
on the
funding
wrong one.
agreements.
Oh, sorry. Oh, man, I should have saved that one for last. Yes, okay. This one. I think Stan has, a couple meetings back, we went through to go look at some of these interlocal agreements and funding agreements to see, where we could, are some of them old, are we even using anymore? Like Stan brought up, that we're not dog catchers anymore and all that kind of stuff. We could clean some of that stuff up. I'll let him speak on the codes portion, but this is one in particular that I wanted to speak on because I think we need to update, maybe through GIS or whatever we need to do on what roads are actually city, what roads are actually county. Because if you cursor all the way down to the last Exhibit A, it's the last page, that's what we go by. I'm thinking we need to probably look into that just to make sure, because I think from what I've received from public, some of these roads may or may not be county, city, so these numbers may be skewed a little bit to where, if you look at the 609,000 that we've spent countywide over the last 4 or 5 years to Freeport's 103, that may differ one way or the other. And we don't really, I've sat into some city meetings where some folks don't even know who takes care of what roads. So I think before we get too far into this particular example that I've done, I got all this data from Public Works and everything. I think we need to kind of look at the roads at a whole, if we can, with GIS maybe, or somehow to specify what roads are whose and who takes care of what, because I think there's a lot of discrepancy in there. And I spoke to Buddy on that today, and he said this is the best he could do with what, he has. So, and it's kind of difficult on a segment of road, where does it stop, where it's city, and where does it stop at when it's county and all that. I just think it'd be better if we kind of knew. I mean, this is an exercise that would be a good first one to start. So I don't know if I necessarily need a motion on anything, but maybe direction to look into possibly color coding or putting a map or something together to define the roads that are county, city, and maybe HOA.
Sure.
Yeah, just general direction. That'll be across a couple divisions of Public Works, Planning, and the Administrator.
Madam Chair, Melissa, or Ms. Thompson, they only give us 11,000 in gas tax? I mean, that,
No, sir,
they gotta collect a lot more than that.
Are you talking about the city of Freeport?
Yes.
Well, they don't get it.
Yeah,
Because we have the expenses. The calculation is based on your transportation expenditures for 5
what
years. So since we have
we
the
expend.
expenditures, we get the gas tax. They have a lower proportional percent of it's very small. So that's about what they get out of the distribution.
So it's the gas taxes are so the way it works is gas tax is reimbursement on the amount of expenditures you incur. Freeport turns over whatever would have been incurred to you. If you don't incur enough expenses, you don't get as much reimbursement. That's the rub of this whole.
The state's formula just goes
Paxton gets more
ahead.
than that. They got one gas station.
The Funiac does too, but this is probably a good part of what Commissioner Curry's talking about. That would be probably a useful discussion of what roads the county is doing work on that perhaps the county could be submitting reimbursable expenses on that they are not.
Well, we need to start.
Because it is wholly, you can sit there and beg them to get, I mean, I think the Funiac got 360,000 last year from their gas tax. And Freeport's a bigger city, and those gas stations in Freeport have always been some of the higher revenue ones. So I was shocked when I saw those numbers.
Take in 11,000
A week.
a week.
But so with that being said, let us get some of that together, and that will help. And I think we can help set that up. That's a good point to start.
And Commissioner, that's not going to be the gas taxes that are collected
Yeah.
within the city. That's the gas taxes that they get to keep out of the formula, not what's actually sold.
And what they keep is based on their expenses
expenses.
related to road.
Well, they don't have
maintenance.
any expense.
That's why they don't get the red money.
But the problem is, we've got to show at the county level that we are incurring expense on their behalf as part of the interlocal, so that the money can be, so that expense can be related to the state to get it back. I think there is possibly a disconnect in the way we have treated that math, because there are county roads in the city that the county maintains, but then there's the interlocal. So it's the color coding he's talking about. When I saw those numbers too, I was candidly just floored. I couldn't figure out how that happened. But it's something that I think it's, because we provide the service, probably not a good, there's a lack of communication to the state somewhere that we can improve on. Not saying that.
Well,
we may
that's
have to
all I
help
wanted
them.
this
We may have to do
exercise
the
to do.
legwork, but if it's worth money to us, we better do it.
Right.
It should be worth a lot of money to us.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I don't think I need one, just direction, right?
Just use
Direction's
direction.
fine.
Okay. I just wanted to include, there are several interlocal agreements, and if we can get all of those reviewed and updated and,
I think Stan has
We-
one on codes.
Yeah, so I can give you a quick update on that.
okay.
I've tasked Melissa and her team with looking at the funding agreements. And then I've tasked Carrie in our office and administration and Cynthia in legal to team up and take a look at the interlocal agreements. And the first scrub, if you will, is to go through all those agreements and separate out the ones that are no longer effective or outdated. And let's get the ones that we're still working with in a pile, and then begin to look through those for accuracy within those agreements. They are currently underway with that. We've had myself and Mr. Corman has met with the city of Freeport in regards to one interlocal in particular, that being the code enforcement services that we provide for them. They requested our cost associated with providing that service. We've provided that to them, but have not heard back yet as to whether they prefer to perform that service themselves or pay us to do that. So we're working through it. It's a big task, but we'll get through it.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you. Great. Okay, you've got another one?
Yep. Let's see, now we're at the flags, I believe. I had a citizen's request if we could have flags placed at all the community centers. And this, I'm not sure which coffer I could utilize. So, I mean, my second choice, if I can't use rec plat fees, is to use my office discretionary funds, and I would fund all the 5, 6 community centers with these flags out of my funds.
It's gonna need to be discretionary funds. I don't think we can get direct plat fees on this one.
Well, first of all, some of these community centers have those things.
The ones that don't.
And second, I think the coffer should be facilities maintenance maintains those buildings. We should just direct Mr. Sunday to have facilities maintenance to do a audit of the community centers, and the ones that don't have the correct flags, put them in there.
Take it out of their budget.
Yeah,
County owned.
county owned.
County owned, yeah, because that's the thing, a lot of these community centers are not county owned.
Right.
And not that they don't need flags in them, I agree that they should have.
Well, I mean, the
especially if
ones-
they're polling places, but if we don't own them, we gotta get permission to do that. And I don't think anybody would be against it, but we still have to get permission.
Well, like the Choctaw Beach community, I don't know if they have one that I'm gonna fix. It's a big wall one, but I mean,
But that, we don't own that.
right, but
But it's a polling place, so it should have those flags. Polling places have to have those 2 flags. But I'm pretty sure Glendale, Darlington, and Children's Home have them.
Okay.
And Uchiana has them.
Well, then let's do this, let's make a motion.
Mr. Alford and them audit them and tell us, and
Okay.
then fix it.
Well, why don't we just take a formal motion of the board to make sure that we have a state of Florida and United States of America flag at all community centers that are owned by the county, and that should come out of facility maintenance budget. And then that way, we're not bringing this back to the board, you've tasked them, we get it done that way.
You want to make that motion?
yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the board? Any comments from the audience? Yes, ma'am. Hi, Margaret.
It's not a big deal, but if you do put up a flag, Margaret Landry, Landry, would you have somebody that would take it down at night?
No,
And if
these
it's
would be
raining?
indoor. These are indoor
indoors.
flags.
Oh,
Indoor
okay, I'm
only, so
sorry.
like
Yes,
these
ma'am.
here.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Yes, ma'am.
You might wanna add any polling places too, to that, because if we're using, think state law probably requires it.
We can, if you'll let us talk to the supervisor of election about it, because we don't own all of the polling places, the concern would be the maintenance, retaining them. Otherwise, give us a chance to talk to Ryan about that. Let's start with county. That's why I said county-owned community centers, because we have some that the county doesn't own, and we just need to parse that out. But
Okay.
this will get us to that step.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. You get one more.
This is it. They were short. I just, coming from the private sector to this, I asked Mr. Atkinson, do we have any kind of mail policy? And, we had this Chelco letter, and I don't want to bring up the contents of the letter. I'm bringing up the fact that I didn't get this letter. I found out about it, via a conversation, so I got it from a citizen. Actually, it was Dr. John Ward who sent it to me. So I just said, can we have some kind of mail, and I know I don't want to keep adding layers of government, but can we not have some kind of mail policy to where, if it's a letter or something is addressed to the commissioners get it, and is it, I guess, is it precedent that the mail is vetted before we get it? I mean, because all my mail is opened up, or the envelope is stapled to the letter, or there is no envelope, but the letter's folded up in it. I just don't, and I asked, and there is no policy. I'm just requesting, I guess, direction if we could look into having some type of mail policy.
So if it's addressed to you individually as a commissioner, it should not be open. It should be either one, sent directly to you, or if it's sent to an alternative location, it should then at that point be forwarded to you.
Okay.
If it comes to our office electronically, obviously, and it's directed to you, that should be forwarded to you as the individual commissioner. A lot of times we get, so at admin, we have a physical address where mail comes to. We have staff that receives the mail. We also have a post office box. We also have the clerk's office who receives some of our mail. The clerk's office as well has, in addition to a physical address, has a P.O. box. So some of our billing gets sent to the clerk, who then sends it to us. We have, the county attorney's office has an address, Melissa has a physical address, Public Works has a physical address, and each of you have a physical address. We can't obviously control where that mail gets sent to. We just work to make sure that it gets to the intended recipient. And if it is addressed to, and a lot of the stuff, bills,
Yeah, I don't want no bills.
We get a lot of correspondence, let me
Right.
just say that. So bills, typical correspondence that come to commissioners. We were at a commissioner's office yesterday, and a constituent walked in and hand-delivered a piece of mail.
Yep.
That
was mine.
she had a desire for it to go to, the rest of the board. So we made sure that happened. But we do our best to make sure that it gets to you guys when it needs to go to you.
Well, and if Clay could chime in here on the incident with Defuniak Springs is my only concern too. Like with this Chelco letter, that was a $2 million, issue that, I didn't receive this until, 3 or 4 weeks afterwards. So, I just don't want anything like that slipping through the cracks like happened in Defuniak Springs.
And I'm not blaming this for that mishap, but on the envelope, the address was 76 North Walton Street. I don't know where North Walton Street is. Our address is 76 North
Right.
6th Street. So did it make it to our address? I don't know.
Right.
And I will. Commissioner Curry asked, was I aware of, had I seen these policies elsewhere? And I said, well, unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell you, yes, we have in one jurisdiction I represent, we have a resolution that deals with the mail delivery policy of anything addressed to the city council or to the city at large that comes from another governmental agency. We include other utilities and things like that in there, because unfortunately, we did learn of a circumstance that resulted in a grand jury against the city of Defuniak related to the non-filing of audits with the state of Florida. The state communicated well over a dozen times to the city about, you need to file, you need to file, you need to file. When we said, well, where were you sending them to? They said City Hall, and they told it was certified. Sure enough, they had certified mail. I won't comment too much on the resignation or termination of the specific finance director at the time, other than to say that when he was no longer the finance director, his desk drawers were opened to clean out, and stacks of certified letters, including those from the state, were found shoved in the back of a desk drawer. So in response to a grand jury report, a resolution was adopted. I don't want us to get there either, but ultimately, it's really to the board how much of a detailed policy we have, and look at it. It may well be one that you let admin kind of evaluate what's coming and going and getting a good grasp on what they're doing and get with you about it and make sure it's happening efficiently. But if the board wants a policy, we can go all the way to what we did there in the Defuniak and draft one. I mean, I would tell you this, I'd rather draft it for you today if you want it than do it after a grand jury. That would be my only comment. And I'm not saying you're at that point, but it was not a pretty situation where the council was raked over the coals and basically told you're responsible when they had literally zero knowledge, yet other city officials were receiving those communications.
That's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up for discussion. I mean, I'd like to hear what everybody else says.
Well, I didn't get that either until probably a month after it was, it showed up somewhere. So, so are you going to ask?
Well, I mean, maybe direction to bring something back. I mean, I don't think we need a full-blown,
Can you look at some options?
I mean, yeah, can you come back with something like that?
I would prefer that we allow Mr. Sunday to investigate this and to get with Clay and come back, because he's been doing this for a long time. I've never had a problem getting mail. Now, I didn't get the Chelco mail, but being a former mailman, when it's addressed to somewhat address that's not existent, then it's probably going back to Chelco. And I was told by a person one time that the Postal Service never loses mail. Well, we moved to a new office. We took the boxes in the post office down. There was a letter from 1934 under those boxes. So we do lose it. We did lose mail. But before we just get out on a whole big policy, let's see what the problem is, if there's a problem. And I guarantee you, you guys don't want to have every day to go through the junk mail that we all get in our boxes. So, and I've been up at admin, and I'm sure you have too, Commissioner Johns, and you too, Mr. Clerk. They get a lot of mail every day. And I don't care what the policy is, don't send me that crap that I'm gonna throw in the garbage. So, I suggest that we get Mr. Sunday to look at it and get with Clay and come back.
Well, a couple of them, it was pretty funny. It was from Rick Scott congratulating me 3 times in 1 month for winning my seat. So, but it was opened and stapled to the envelope and then sent to me in one of those envelopes. So, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of funny.
Well, I've gotten a couple of those, but mine are not open.
Card from Donald Trump too, so.
Mine are not open, so I don't know. Okay, Commissioner Glidewell.
Yeah, mine's simple. A few weeks ago, we discussed the scenic corridor standards and guidelines on US 98 and 30A. And we agreed then to suspend enforcement of those pending either repeal, amendment, or that we decided we liked them and we're going to enforce them. So all I'm asking is that we scheduled and advertise a public hearing to consider changes to those standards, and we'll see what everybody wants.
If you'll just make a motion for staff to bring back an ordinance doing that. Can't schedule a public hearing until we have the ordinance title, so if you'll just do that, we'll get on it.
That's my motion.
Would we need a workshop or anything on that first to let public, or no?
We can just do it all at one time, I think.
We got to have an ordinance first.
We at least have to have the title. I can't advertise that title. So if you'll just direct us to do that, we'll bring something back, request to schedule a public hearing on it,
Okay.
and we'll get that moving.
Well, that'll work.
So do we need a motion?
Judy, any
Yeah,
motion?
let's have a motion to direct staff to develop that ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Yes, Ms. Morano?
I just want to be clear, are you talking about 30A for design standards?
30A and 98.
Okay, do you realize we don't have any design standards at all, so they would have to be developed? You can't correct something that you don't have on 30A.
We have scenic corridor standards.
We have seen a corridor standard.
They
That's
have
what-
not
that's what
been
we-
fleshed out.
We agree, but that's what got us into
Well,
litigation.
we got into
over bans.
litigation about it.
We have sign standards specific to the scenic corridor. We do not have all of the other standards that are contained in the US 98 scenic corridor that are more aesthetically.
And I believe that's the combination of what we're talking about.
What about 38? We don't have design standards on 38.
We don't have those aesthetic standards on 38.
You will.
No.
No. Well, that's up to the public hearing.
That's what I want to be.
That was actually added to the code back in July of last year or the year before, that we were going to have design review board standards on 30A, and I believe on old 98 or scenic 98.
But we don't.
But we haven't done that yet.
Correct.
What we need to do is we need to determine whether or not we're going to have 2 DRBs, or we're going to have extra people on the 1 DRB, so that in case they,
Right.
can't be at 2 meetings a month.
Okay.
So we're still working to do that, but we do need to do that in order to have those standards along scenic 30A
Correct.
But
and scenic 98.
whatever we do, we've got to have, Mr. Corman's group has got to have something in writing to enforce.
Right.
And so we've got to move on with this.
Mhm.
And not only Mr. Corman's group to enforce, but like I mentioned before, we're sitting and looking at a restaurant on 30A, and we don't have any design standards. And when I tell that to people, their mouth drops. We don't. There's no design standards for color, for signs, like it is in 98. So thank you. We need to do that ASAP. It should have been done when this was adopted, but it wasn't.
I agree.
So, thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
is this the Parlor Donuts issue we were trying to rectify?
Heirloom donuts and the PV banners, Trump 1 banner case.
Right.
This is the lineal follow-up of that, cleaning those standards up. We'll come around and
We've already
talk to
taken
each of you.
care of the banner, right?
We've taken care of that, but as far as that specific banner, but in terms of the ability for it to be repeated, what Commissioner Glau was asking is, let's get the code cleaned up where we can't have a repeat of that issue in the future at another location.
Either
We'll come around and
repeal-
talk to each of you about the ordinance.
Either
this week.
repeal them, amend them, or do something with them.
We'll get it to you.
Okay. Did you have anything else?
Did we,
We got to vote on it.
yeah, we voted.
Oh,
Did you have a
Hold on.
motion?
You
and
got
a
a
second?
motion
and a second.
Pardon, I'm
You
sorry.
got a hand wave.
Oh, I got another lead. Come on.
But understand, we're not gonna talk about the actual standards, we're talking about directing staff to come back with the ordinance, is all this is.
Right.
Thank you. Lee Moore, Executive Director of Scenic Walton. I'm unclear as to what exactly this pertains to. You mentioned possible repeal or change or whatever. Is it just about the signage, and is it both 30A and 98? Or we were talking a moment ago about developing more aesthetic guidelines for 30A. And if that's going to be part of it, I would suggest not leaving out Scenic Gulf Drive, because those standards are very much, different from 30A and 98. They're all three different. And I think there's
We'll
been a
make sure and
desire
include them.
to get, not that they need to have the exact same standards.
I'll
I'm
get with
not
Mr.
saying
Carpenter
that.
and make sure Ms. Moore's group's included in these discussions.
Yes, and we would love to, at Scenic Walton, would love to be a part of, helping draft it, participate, of course, in the public hearing and all of that, but this is really important.
That would be very helpful for us to have you and your team, your group
Sure thing.
do that. Thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Drake, did you have anything?
Yeah, at We Care Park there on Walton Road in Definiak Springs, just across the street from the high school, is named Local Heroes Way. And there's a sign as you go into Local Heroes Way there at We Care Park that commemorates the fallen officers from Walton County. And I'd like to update that sign, so we'll have to take that one down, and we would erect a new sign that would be in memory or provide a memorial recognizing Deputy Will May for his service to our community. So I'd like to update that signage.
We can do that without a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
And
Anything else?
also, I want to follow in the footsteps of what we did earlier in the community of Mossy Head. There at the community center, there's the parking lot there where a lot of kids play and basketball and things like that. I would like to be able to pave that area, and I think it would cost somewhere around 15 grand.
So I talked to Commissioner Drake about this. What I told him was that while a lot of times we'll bring this forward because we need rec plat fees, if there is sufficient money in our paving budget, because we're just about laying blacktop down, if there's sufficient money in the paving budget that can be identified, that's unallocated to any other district or any other project, that's something that by general direction to staff, our facilities maintenance can get out there since it's our community center to do.
It is, it's county owned.
No, it's not, but we have an MOU.
Well, we have the MOU with it, so.
We put a roof on it.
So that's fine. We can do that directly at staff level. No motion needed on that.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if we don't have the money in the paving budget, I would donate it.
Well, we'll have to bring that back as a motion if the case is, but I'm pretty clear we've got the money. Melissa, Stan are both nodding over here. We've got the money to do it. We just want to make this as easy as possible and without trying to make it more complex. It's a matter of letting them go out there and surface a court.
But in the spirit of cooperation,
I will be happy.
maybe the basketball goals.
I was fixing to say, we need to put some basketball.
Whatever you need, I will.
Let's put that on the next
we will have
agenda,
to-
under the
we will
consent
have to-
agenda, Melissa.
We will have to bring it
That
back.
won't be,
but-
It'll be on the next agenda as a consent agenda for District 5 rec plat fees to donate basketball goals to Mossy Head Community Center.
thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
All right.
That's it.
Okay, go ahead. Commissioner Curry has just
Oh.
asked for 5 seconds, so he's getting 5 seconds. Please turn the clock on.
I totally forgot. I wanted to thank the students of Freeport High School for their hard work and the murals. I don't know if anybody have seen them on social media, but there's 6 murals all around the restroom facilities. I stood out there with them, God, from 7 in the morning till about 7 at night. I mean, that was a great example of teamwork. That's Arts in the Park with Lieutenant Mark and Ted. So I just wanted to give them a special shout out and thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very nice. That they did a great job. I've got a few things on here. One of the things I wanted to bring up is parking garages. We've talked about parking garages for years, and we don't have any vertical parking garages at all. And I think that if we keep kicking that can down the road, you know, it's just going to make life worse for all of us, because on the south end especially, traffic is bad, parking in the right of way, all of that sort of thing. And we've bought a lot of property for parking, and I know that Brian Kellenberger has done a great job with the Grayton Beach corner and on 393, I believe it is, that one, and some other areas. But we have the Meade property, which is in my district, and it's right on 98. It's a straight shot down to the beach. And if we can move forward with investigating a company or somebody that can give us, move us in the right direction to get this done, because that's a lot of money revenue that we could be getting that we're not. And we've got the property, we've paid dearly for it, and we may as well see if we can move forward with using it. Different companies have different opportunities, and I think it's worth looking at. Some of them would fund it using our property, there are different options. So if you could just check out the different options and find out and let us start moving in that direction. So maybe within the next couple of years, we'll have a parking garage. And at the location that it's at, and I don't know, it'd have to go through architectural design and all of that, but you could potentially put the commissioner's office in there and not have to pay rent, and a few other things that we could do in that building.
So you're talking specifically about the Mead property?
Yes, unless you've got some other property that I'm unaware of that's close to the
I
beach.
think that would be a good place to start.
Okay, thank you. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Would it be paid parking or?
Paid parking in a parking garage, but actually, I don't think the locals should have to pay. Or they could get an annual pass, something like that for super reduced rate. But we need some organized parking, and we need places for people to park without it being all over our right of way and tearing up the landscaping and everything else. Okay, my next item is, I just wanted to bring up the short-term rental exclusion. I brought it up at a recent meeting and had asked to check into that and find out what we can and can't do. And if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sunday, but I think that Florida statute prevents us from excluding any areas at this time unless it's an HOA or something along those lines. So I think what we need to do, maybe as a community as a whole, is we need to, reach out to our representatives in Tallahassee and otherwise, and let them know how we feel about short-term rentals. I personally think that in established neighborhoods that it's just wrong to have the short-term rentals. And I'm not talking about 6 months rentals or a year or anything like that. I'm talking about somebody new every other week, every weekend, at your door. People are coming to my office and talking to me about the fact they don't feel safe, and they don't feel safe letting their children outside because they don't know who's going to be at the house next door. And I've also had some that have been extremely upset about the people that are staying in some of these homes and the illegal activities that are taking place. And so I just feel like we really need to start looking in this direction, and if we can't do it here locally ourselves, then we need to go and lobby for it. And so I just wanted to let you all know that we have not dropped this ball. We're thinking about it, we're working on it, and we're trying to get something done. And I know that planning is working on getting their short-term rental program going, and they've got some ideas on how to fast track that, since it does take a long time and a lot of the work is monotonous.
I'll be glad to speak to our state lobbyist about that and talk to her about the state preemption part of it.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
But I would like to be clear that, and I mean, I've been to several meetings about this, and it's not just our county that's not happy with the preemptions. But the fact of the matter is we're preempted from any kind of prohibitions on short-term rentals, and I haven't heard a legislator yet that said they were willing to talk about it, about repeal. So I wouldn't get your hopes up. I mean, that's
Well,
just.
you don't know if you don't try, right?
I agree with trying, but I'm just saying, don't get your hopes up.
And the easiest way, as you mentioned before, and nobody dislikes HOAs more than I do. I've lived in them, I've lived out of them, I just don't like them. But that's the solution to this problem, is the HOAs, establishing the HOAs and getting them to vote no short-term rentals in their HOA. Now, that doesn't mean we quit trying to get the state
Out of our business.
Right.
which is one of the biggest grievances I have with the state is preemptions. And, but, it's gonna be a long haul. And I'm not against what you're saying, I just want you to know that. And
Right, I
I'll go to
understand.
Tallahassee and speak on it if I need to, but it's gonna be a long haul.
Okay.
The HOAs are the answer. I know they're difficult to obtain unless you have them from the start, but that is what the legislature has left us with as far as a way out, or a way to regulate. We can't regulate them, but HOAs can.
Can the neighborhood plans regulate them?
No, because we're the ones who impose the neighborhood plan.
No.
So unfortunately, the Attorney General opined back in 2015, 2016, under a prior version of the statute, specifically telling a city that any effort by the city to eliminate where short-term rentals could go in certain neighborhoods would be a prohibition. And that was under a lighter version of the statute where we still had the ability to regulate. And the Attorney General said at the time, the power to regulate does not encompass the power to prohibit. And so that's why we run into this problem, is that even under the softer version of that statute that was not full preemption, that type of exclusion was deemed consistent by the AG to be in violation of our granted authorities. Cities had a little bit more authority, and that's why the AG opinion got issued.
The other thing.
But we can certainly talk to them about it.
The other thing that you hear from the public is that certain counties, Monroe comes to mind, can regulate short-term rentals, and they can, because their statute or their ordinance was pre-2011 and is grandfathered in. And while we can bemoan the fact that we didn't have it in 2011, nevertheless, we don't, and so we can't do what Monroe County can. Because we're preempted because we didn't have ours in place pre-2011.
Well, one of the things I think that we can do is, I believe that our code says that if you've not gone through the rental process, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Carpenter, if you've not gone through the rental process and completed that you cannot rent it. So if you cannot rent your home until you go through the process, then if you do, then code should be able to shut that down.
We're going to look at all of those options. I know we have a couple of those pending right now, but what we can do without causing that problem.
Thank
But we'll absolutely get with Kelly and our state lobbyist, Mr. Heffley.
That
Okay.
was the furthest we could go to regulate them when that was passed. And I mean, I'm like Commissioner Anderson, I'm all for doing what we can, but unfortunately.
Right, right. But if we do have the authority to stop them from renting if they've not gone through the process, I would like to see us enforce that.
We'll see what we can do.
Okay, thank you. The next thing I had is GPS is on the county vehicles. I know when I first came on the board, I had talked to a few people about it in the county, and I know that, I believe that Buddy Wright and Public Works, their big equipment does have GPS on them, and I think that's great. But I think that we need to include that on all the county vehicles, and I'd just like to ask to maybe get a cost at what that would look like. Because I think I get a lot of information, a lot of people reach out to me and tell me about county things, and, you know, maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, I don't know. But I just think that it would be safer for us and for liability purposes and everything else. So if you could just check to see what it would cost us if we would be interested in going down that road.
I'm, for one, not interested in going down that road, but
Okay.
I
Well,
don't think there's any bang for the buck and to our citizens, and I think, it's sort of a shot at our employees, and I've never heard those things very much being used for anything but to mess around with employees, so.
Well, they used them for, I believe, the purpose that they were put on the larger vehicles.
Speed.
For speed? Well,
For speed.
Well, I think it was more than that. I think that it was like seat belts and stuff like that. There's something where it can monitor that. Okay, sorry about that. I'm talking about what opportunities that the GPS would give us. I mean, what other kind of things could it tell us? Like, I believe what I was told initially is that what they put in the larger trucks and things like that were things to be able to tell that someone was wearing their seatbelt. And for safety purposes, not to just say, hey, you're not wearing your seatbelt, but to give a reminder for who's driving it, you know, to wear your seatbelt, because we don't want you to get in a wreck and be injured. And in this particular case that started this to begin with, I believe the man died. So I just think that it's something that we should look at. I think it's a responsible thing to do.
Madam Chair.
And yes.
Back in my running trucking companies, a lot of the trucks had special Qualcomm units in them that would tell you speed, it would tell you seat belts, it would tell you, if the truck was stolen, the dispatcher could initiate a shutoff on the truck, so they would stop right there on wherever, as soon as the truck stopped in motion, then the truck would shut off. You couldn't shut it off in motion. But I think it's just however much you want to go in. My only thing is, I don't think we're going to have anybody manning the operation. So I don't know. Would it be just like if somebody says, "Hey, I saw truck 712 run 4 stoplights," and then we look back at the GPS and see who that was and all that?
Or if there's a wreck, or if somebody's claiming that somebody's somewhere that they're not, that sort of thing.
I think
I don't think that we expect anybody to sit there and monitor this on a daily basis at all. I don't think that.
I think perhaps part of the thing is not just putting the device on the vehicle, but looking at the software backing of the device, determine what our monitoring options and capabilities are. That would be part of the price discussion. If all you're asking staff to get your price,
That's it.
we won't need action today, but that may have to come back as part of the overall budget process, depending on the cost.
I can tell you, based on my conversations with the fleet manager, all of the commercial vehicles in Public Works have these on them. I believe code enforcement vehicles have them on them. He said that about 244 to 250 vehicles remain in the fleet without. Cost is roughly $12.75, $13 per month per vehicle for the service. You're also going to have some upfront equipment cost. It's hard for him to quantify that because the equipment depends on the particular vehicle, how old the vehicle is, and what capabilities it has built into the vehicle when it comes. So just know that there would be an upfront equipment cost in addition to the $13 per month service cost.
Could you also bring back the capabilities that it would have?
We can do that.
Okay, thank you. One last thing is
My curiosity is up now. Is there anything that initiated the need for that type of monitoring service? Is there an incident?
Well, I have a lot of people reach out to me and tell me that they've, seen this or seen that, and the cars are stopped, and there's a bunch of cars stopped at one location, things like that. I don't know if they are or not, because anybody can say anything. I don't know if they are or not. But, we've got 6 trucks sitting under a bridge somewhere all day long or something like that. I'd just as soon have it to prove that that's not true, But it's also, it truly is a safety issue, especially if it can show whether or not you're wearing your seatbelt, because a lot of people don't want to wear their seatbelt, but it's a reminder, I think, too. I mean, I've had a relative that was in an accident and ejected because he didn't have on his seatbelt and passed away. We've had one in the county, same thing. And I just look at it as a safety issue. It's not trying to monitor and see what everybody's doing. Like I said, I don't think anybody should sit there and monitor this on a daily basis. But, I mean, for wrecks or something like that, I think it's helpful because we do have a lot of wrecks that we don't know about. So there's got to be a reason why they're on code cars. What's the reason they put them on the code vehicles?
Primarily for the camera that's associated with it.
Okay. I thought they wore body cams.
They do.
It's both.
Oh,
vehicular.
Okay. Okay.
How do you figure we have wrecks that are, that are
Well, we get
unreported?
people that get rear-ended and stuff like that, and I've seen a county car that had a busted window with a trash bag on the side of it and stuff like that. So, yeah, we do.
I don't think that since I've been on the board, we've had a wreck that has not been reported. Not to my knowledge.
And, if you go on a job site and you're slinging trees around, there's likely to be a window broke.
Oh, well, I'm not blaming or criticizing or saying anything like that. I'm just saying that I think it's a safety measure, that's it. I'm not.
I think it's Big Brother looking out for you.
Well, all right, I'm moving on to number 46, and then I'm done. I'm asking to take $345,000 of my rec plat fees for playground equipment at Paradise Park and the irrigation at Paradise Park. Didn't realize I was going to need the irrigation money, but I do. And the playground equipment is ADA compliant. I didn't realize that the sand that we have under some of our playground equipment is not ADA compliant. So this is ADA compliant. It's also inclusive, so children that are autistic or children that are, have a disability, it'll be something that they will be able to use as well. And I think it would be just a really nice addition. And I've got it in my plat fees, and I'd just like to be able to.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comments? Any comment from the audience? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
We got public comments.
I
know we talked about it, and I didn't
I was right there saying the same thing.
take the motion.
I was trying to
Are there
speed up-
any
I was
public
trying to speed up
comments?
Gladwell's government over here.
There you go.
Any public, okay, no pub, seeing none. We had a motion and a second to adjourn. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for being here.